Just FYI. Anybody want water? Good evening, everyone. So I'll call the Peterborough regular town council meeting to order at 5 p.m. for June 26th. And we have the agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? I have none, Your Worship. Thank you. Great. Would someone move to Councillor Good?
I'll move the agenda for the June 26th, 2023 for council meeting.
Thank you. All those in favor?
So moved, but so pushing here.
It is carried. Okay, we have the minutes of the June 12th regular council meeting in front of us. Has anyone noticed any edits that should happen with those minutes? If not, would someone be prepared to propose a motion about those minutes?
Oh, I will. I'll move the council adopt the minutes, the June 12th, 2023 regular council meeting as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor of that motion? It is carried. Thank you. Next, we have public hearings and we don't have any tonight, so we're onwards to presentations. So it's good that we have an audience to hear everybody else's presentation tonight. So the first one is grants to organizations presentation by the Underground Music Society. So if you just come up to the two chairs and you press the microphone button and just leave it on. And we'll ask you at the beginning of your presentation to say your full name so that the minutes can record that. And you're telling us about your grants to organizations application, I guess.
Hi, I'm with the Underground Music Society. My name is Susan Rankin.
I'm Nessa Lard.
And, oh, I'm nervous. I didn't expect it to be this. We've been bringing live music to Peace River for the last 26 years. We just finished our 26th season and in September starting our 27th season. And unfortunately, we had to cancel our last gig in May because we didn't have the funding to pay for the band. We only have finite amount of money that we can charge for our customers so we can keep the prices at a reasonable price so everybody can attend. But prices have gone up for gas and everything else, and we're 500 kilometers away from usually when we get our talent, and that's an extra $100 each way for them to come up. But we can't. Our budget didn't really put that into it because again we'd have to raise our prices, but we don't really want to do that because then it kind of doesn't make it makes it more exclusive as opposed to inclusive. And I know that you guys do, and we have in the past gotten grants before, so that's what we thought we'd come in and with our hat in hand and see if you guys can help us out for our September and our 27th season with the Underground. We've I'm sure some of you here in council have been to one of our dances, so you know what kind of dances we have. I can probably say in the 26 years, we've never had one incident to where the police had to get involved to do their jobs, because the type of clientele that we have and the type of atmosphere that we promote is family friendly. Everybody's invited. It's just basically everybody's let their hair down and enjoy themselves, which is something that is totally needed right now in today's society. Was there any questions that you guys would like to ask?
Councilors, do you have questions? Well, one question, so your ask is to
It's to help us subsidize our band, our talent, to help pay for the band, so that way we can actually pay them a little bit more, so they can actually want to come up here and play for us. Because otherwise, they're just kind of like, yeah, we'd like to, but I mean, we can't because of all that, they've got the extra costs as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that there was no dollar figure on how much we could ask for, and it wasn't, and it's something that I was more of, because I know there's only so much money to go around as well, because there's a lot of other organizations that are worthy as well.
Yeah.
But it was just something just to help us with our band. Right now, we usually pay $1,500 is our limit, basically, if we want to keep that $30 admission. And we were hoping for, $500 to $1,000 to help us, so we can actually subsidize, so the bands would want to come up and play for us.
So on the project event budget sheet, your total income is around 2,500 and your total expenses, I'm reading here, is about 3,200.
Yeah,
So the difference of those two is kind of what the application would then.
yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for, is just something just so we can kind of like help pay for it, because we also bring in people from all around, at least 100 to 150 kilometer radius. People are coming in using hotels, they're using the restaurants, they're coming, they usually stay, they're doing shopping, they're the grocery shopping. It's something that we do bring in. We do bring in money for Peace River, so it's something that we, and people know us now that we've been here for as long as we have. So it's kind of embarrassing. No, it's I take it as a pride. But
it's good you've been around that.
yeah, I know.
So the project essentially then is to help pay operational expenses.
Exactly.
For this one event.
Exactly, because if the money that we can make, it'll help subsidize September's. I mean, sorry, the Halloween dance, which is our big, everybody looks, it is a big event.
Okay, councillors, Councillor Shannon.
Are you looking for a one-time
Well,
offer
actually,
of help, or like what do you have?
what I was planning on, because I was planning on coming to see you guys every grant application now. Because now that we know that we could get, the next one I was gonna come and see you guys is gonna be for the Novembers. And do this so we can kind of help subsidize for the underground, so we can keep it going. Because if we didn't get we had this factor grant that we got, it was a one-time grant that, it was a national grant from, to help with, COVID relief. If we didn't get that grant, the underground we never would have started up again. So it's something that,
So going forward, do you think you'll be able to sustain yourselves?
well, hopefully we can. I mean, but it's again, if we want to, we'll have to raise our prices, and we get pitched a lot. And when we do, we get pitched a lot if we have to raise our prices, because people, yes, we'll see. Hopefully, in best case scenario, we'll never have to come see you again. I know we can hope for that, but I'm hoping that, if that doesn't happen, that we can have a very symbiotic relationship with you guys.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Yes?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. How the facility you use, how many people does it hold? And what is your ticket price per
Our
event?
ticket price is $30 per person. And I believe the event holds a lot more than what we do. We usually we have between 80 to 100 people. Some dances we haven't had that many, but that's kind of what we can hold, about 80 to 100 people. Maybe 120 would be like squishing it, which is in the top floor of the seniors hall.
And also on part B of your project plan, you have a box checked off. It says, is your project a capital request? And you have checked off, yes. Is there a capital request, or is it just for it to help subsidize to get bands here?
Help subsidize to get dance here, because we can kind of,
Just understanding the term.
Yeah, so that's capital request is used for.
well, and we do need, we do need to replace our sound system, because we've got a very, very archaic sound system, but we are planning to do a little bit more of the federal grants. We're looking into that, like with the casino grant. If we get the casino grant, you guys can just all free party for everybody. But I mean, but there's a lot to get that casino grant, but we're totally working on that one, and that's the one that we hope to get, and that would sustain us until infinity kind of thing, because that one it's bigger money, and that's something that can subsidize everything. But yeah, that's in the process of working on it, because we are all volunteer. It's and all volunteer with everything. We even have like to write the grant and that kind of stuff. It's all volunteer for people who choose to help us, and it is an arduous thing, because it's a lot of work.
So what happens tonight is that we're listening to the various presentations, and then at a future council meeting, admin will bring us back some more information, and we will make a decision there about the amount of funding, if possible, sort of thing.
Well, thank you. I just wanted, thank you for the chance to,
Yes,
And just one about being with Peace Fest before, and I know Councillor Good was with the group as well.
Mhm.
Does your group apply for the provincial
the Alberta.
and the federal
We do
grant
the
with the
Alberta
receipts
Foundation of
that
the
we
Arts.
pay?
Yeah, we did the foundation of.
Okay, good,
We
good.
do that one as well. And we have, on the bottom of our posters, we put down anybody who helps us, like sponsored by. So I mean, we would put your name, of course, on there as well, if that was the case, because that's, like, it's all about keeping Peace River viable. I mean, it's kind of, you know.
It was the foundation of the arts grant.
Yeah, the
Here.
foundation, we've been getting that one for a while, but they've really lowered the amount that they've given us, especially with the last government that came in, they've kind of just cut it almost in half, what we're getting before, so I mean, it still does help, but it doesn't, just basically, again, keeps us afloat. Well, thank you guys very much for the
Thank you.
opportunity to present ourselves to you.
and good luck with the
Thank you.
project.
Have a great day.
You as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next presentation, in order if they're here, do we have anybody from the Pride Society at the moment? If not, we'll carry on to the Peace River Art Club. And if you want to come forward, introduce yourselves and tell us about the application.
It's on, yes. Thank you very much for allowing us to come and present. My name is Mary Ann O'Byrne. This is Dana Lalberty. She's the secretary of the president. And we, of course, would like to appeal to the town to see if we could be granted some funds towards what we would like to do as an event. And the event is to promote the Art Hub to become a little bit more, not a little bit, quite a bit more visible in the community, more, the main situation that we're having with the Art Hub at the moment is it's all volunteer and run by donations at the moment. And so we are, we do have an incredible donation person on our committee. And we've raised a fair bit of money. We started out from the art club with a little bit of money to begin with to set ourselves up. And, but in order for us to become more viable, we need to have a few more dollars in order for us to stay viable. We need to, we intend to have this gala that would be inviting businesses to come and be more aware of what collaboration they could be with our Art Hub. And we're any other organizations that are in town that the gala is intended for them to be able to understand exactly how they can be part of our organization. So we outlined in our application pretty much what our expenses would be for the gala. And the main thrust of what we're asking for is money for communications. We really are using most of our home communications at the moment, but we need to have payment for websites, all sorts of other little things that would help be able to promote what we're doing within the community, region, province, you name it. And eventually we would be applying for bigger money for operations, but right now we need to get promoting ourselves in order to get more donations and more sponsorships in order to help keep that ball and momentum running.
So we've gone from 25 members last fall to over 200 now.
Yeah.
And we've had, if you walk into the front door of the Art Hub, you will see a huge sign with, we put everybody down, the name on there who has donated anything. If you donated a case of toilet paper, your name is on that wall. So the community has been wonderful stepping up, but it's really interesting as I go around looking for donations and informing people about the Art Hub. I'm still getting people saying they haven't heard about us. And even though you can see that sign from as you're coming into town, it says Art Hub, there's still people that don't know that we exist. So we know that communication, our communication committee is a huge piece of that whole thing. It's not just about fundraising and programming and everything. And so there are lots of costs involved in doing a good job in promotions and marketing. And there are costs if you want a membership to the Move Up magazine, if you want to be part of the Land of Mighty Peace Tourist Association, all those kind of things, Kicks, YL Country, anything like that. And so we have been doing a little bit, trying our best. And what we're looking for is to make this our first time big promotions marketing piece for the art club. So we would have this big fundraising gala. We would invite everybody, all the businesses and organizations that want art in their businesses or for themselves. And we would do a really great marketing and promotions campaign. And that's really what the momentum that we need for this art club now. We're getting all kinds of people coming and taking classes. We've got our potty studio running, the stained glass studio running, 3 galleries up. The gift shop is plumb full and we're actually having to turn people away. We don't have enough room. We've got most of our little businesses going, but all kinds of clubs coming and using the space and renting the space. But this is the big piece now, is this whole promotions and marketing piece. And so this is the area we're looking for some assistance in.
We're also want to just make note that as Dana's mentioned, we're noticing people come in, families bring in family members that have been away. For instance, this one woman came in from Calgary, her daughter lives here, and she came in from Calgary and they toured the art hub, and she was kind of, quite amazed. That's the word that comes up every time. I'm amazed that you have this here. I'm amazed there's so many artists here. And she went home and she actually sent us a donation of $3,000. So we know that by getting that communication out, we have the potential of drawing in some more sponsorship money. And I know it's hard work, but it's easier if we have a better communication system. So again, this is why we thought if we have, some funds towards communication and we have the communication up and running well, the gala could be sort of the kickoff, the icing on our little cake of making sure that Peace River knows that there's this tourism. We know that there's a tourism spot. We know that it's always a workplace retention opportunity to tell people that there is art for your spouse or whatever that's come here and doesn't want to be here, or there's these things here, right? There's these opportunities here in Peace River. We know that communication is key. We just have to have the tools. So that's what we're working towards.
And once, we have a startup fund for this, it will just carry on, right? We have a strong communications committee right now. We have committees for everything, but the communication committee has some really strong people on it. So it's ready to go and it's plugging away at it slowly, just needs the startup funds.
So the application is basically to help the communication committee start up and get things going at the same time this gala goes in or plays into that. And did I get here correctly that part of the gala idea is to entice businesses to come in, buy some art, local art or art that's there, and put it on their business?
Yeah, we've had lots of requests from businesses. And so we thought a gala would be a good way to do that. But also so they're not only requesting it, but we also know that a lot of them aren't aware of us still.
Yeah.
And so we really need to reach out to the businesses and other organizations so everybody's aware that we exist.
We know that in town, Claire's Framing used to have a good selection of Peace River themed art. And people would go into Claire's and pick up something as a going away present, retirement present, good luck present, whatever. And we now have a room where anything in the room has to have the theme of Peace River. So it's an opportunity for businesses to come in and say, yes, I'd like this picture, or I'm, you know, this piece of pottery or this piece of glassware. And it is representative of the Peace River theme. And so we think if we have businesses drawn in to see that this is the place you go to get your retirement gift, or this is the place you go for.
Or their retention gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want that retention because we know that, I mean, the number, it's just amazing, sorry, I didn't use that word again. It's just, as you tour people through, they say, I did not know this person painted, I did not know this person could do this. This is amazing, they would say. How many people do art in Peace River? It was just it's a phenomenal thing. Every time I do a tour, people would say that same statement. And it's not that I have a sign up there saying, this is what you gotta say when you leave. It really is a statement that comes out.
Well, it's certainly a valuable, I don't know, call it amenity, whatever, to the town. And thank you also for basically initiating that and getting it to fruition too. So very good to see. But councilors, questions? Deputy Mayor Ford?
Mine's actually not a question, but by going over your application, I was quite impressed with all the letters of support you have from the surrounding organizations in the area. I don't think I've seen that many letters of support for a group on a council grants to group application before. So well done.
We've really been, that was one of our first focus that we worked on was partnerships. And mutually convenient, beneficial partnerships. It's not about everybody writing a letter of support for us. It's about what can we do for you as well. Yeah, because that's really important in the small community.
Other questions? So the ask is monetary wise is about $7,500 is really what it is. Okay, so as I explained before, thank you for your presentation. It now goes back to admin. They come forward again and at a future council meeting, probably in the near future, we will get back to you. Okay, thank you and good luck
so much.
summer.
Thank you so much for your
If you haven't
time.
been there, come visit.
Yes, if you haven't come, then you've got to experience it.
We could all take classes. Okay, no new peoples to the audience. So next up, we have the Misery Mountain Ski Club. So whoever would like to come to the microphone.
We bring everybody up.
However you wish, you could introduce everybody if you like and.
I can stand, I can stand.
Or just draw some chairs, whatever's best.
We'll get them all up here. Everybody has something they can add, so.
We can speak from here.
Okay, hey, that's important too, I guess.
Yes, those ID tickets are always important.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you just introduce yourself again and carry on.
Okay, I'm Chris Johnson, president of the ski club.
My name is Mark Ulen and I'm the treasurer of the ski club. And behind us we have
Okay, thanks. Director Cheryl Fitchy.
Connor Fidget.
Welcome.
Go.
Just want to highlight whatever you want to highlight from the ski club.
Sure. So I guess I'll just start with a quick little operational update for you guys, because obviously you're a big what's going on with the ski club, and we're trying to move it forward with new plans and ideas and trying to make it sustainable. Obviously, that's our biggest goal. Currently, right now, obviously we're in the off season. We don't really have anything too operationally happening other than a lot of chalet rentals, which are flowing through like crazy. They come in weekly, so we're starting to book up more and more with weddings and a few things to kind of help subsidize our summer expenses. Right now, we do have John Gibson here inspecting our chairlift, which is going very, very well from the sounds of it. And he's actually done it now, Mark. So that was about a week process, and we've been checking in and kind of helping here and there. Mark was there yesterday with some guys, and Very optimistic. John is optimistic about our hill as well. He just blows his mind what we have here in our community as well. So, very supportive and gives us a lot of additional advice and ways to succeed with what we have for equipment here on site. Yeah, we're just right now in the midst of we just finished a few events. I'm sure you guys heard about our events we've had to generate some revenue to try and obviously sustain ourselves for the summer as well. They were very successful. Our little gala brought in 150 people approximately, and about $15,000 in revenue plus expenses. So that definitely did help us. Everything that we are doing is obviously just kind of helping us get by right now, but we are in preparation at all times for our ski season, which is our priority. Yeah, you guys have any questions operationally for us?
It's good to hear the chalet rentals are going well.
All it took was just to be available,
Yeah.
honestly, and just to advertise a little bit, just to put ourselves out there, say it is available, we'll do what we need to do.
That whole communication thing again.
Communication is definitely always something, right, that needs to be established in an organization. Yeah, we did submit, I think everybody got our letter, what we were kind of going to present on today to you guys. We are obviously looking for some support financially, obviously, just like every organization in town. And it's neat to see all the different organizations we do have in our community. And I can understand it's overwhelming probably for you guys to receive all these applications, but I believe the Ski Hill, not that it's any better than any organization. I just want to state that it is a huge opportunity for our community to draw people here as well and support these little organizations that are trying to succeed as well. We are looking for some support with our COVID loan is what we're here to present on today. Our prior board of directors obviously utilize and access most of the government funding that came through the COVID times, which obviously did support and help to get through to where we are today. Unfortunately, the COVID loan does come due at the end of the year. Amongst many other obligations the Ski Hill has, we're trying to find some support to either cover the cost of it, would be our first ask. If not, a low interest loan of some sort to help us buy some time for the Ski Hill, because obviously the year that we are going to have in control of this isn't quite enough to get us back on our feet financially. So our ask would be to look for support on that COVID loan.
So as I read it here, the loan was a 2-year term of 60,000 for 60,000, but if you pay it back by this December 31, it's 40,000 so 40,000 is kind of.
Yeah, it automatically on January 1st turns into a $60,000 loan over a 5-year amortization at 5%, I think. That's correct.
And it's 40,000 exactly, or 40,000 with interest on.
40,000 exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry, I think I cut you off.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, counselors, do you have questions? So this is not exactly it's not a grants to groups kind of ask, it's a different ask, but a presentation about the issue, basically. No, it's good to hear lots of positive comments about the ski club and how things are going. It's just, there's always that wish for that whole lot of money would be nice.
How is that downhill biking coming along at the Ski Hill? Is that still moving forward, or do you know anything about that as far as revenue goes for you guys?
So when we took it over, that that AGM, the last of the downhill biking group left the club. So we don't have an operation currently or a board of directors for that for the downhill biking club. That is something we want to establish. We just need to find the right person to reestablish that committee, I guess, because it'll be underneath us. Currently, we don't have anyone that can do it. The board that you see here, these guys work tirelessly every week. Almost every day we're touching something on that hill. So we don't have the capacity to take on the downhill side ourselves. But we are going to look to try and promote it because it could be a huge thing. And there are people using it currently. It's just they don't have access to lifts to the top.
And from a financial standpoint, it's not the big revenue generator of the hill anyways, so that would be, even though it's on the priority list, it would be lower on the priority list.
Yeah, just when it comes to attracting people to the Peace River region, it would be nice to see if it's, because it was presented to us, I think, last term. But it would be nice to see a facility like that around 12 months out of the year, just rather than a few.
So that is exactly our goal. Like I did say, Oren, we're with the group we have, what we're currently trying to do just with chalet rentals and establish the ski hill for the winter season. We're at our capacity, but we are looking for people to join us and start committees like this under us to try and help. So I think it's a huge opportunity too. I agree.
But priorities have to be set, right? I guess.
Yeah,
So you have a financial projection here and it's pretty well on track at this point in time?
Actually, a couple of asterisks I would put on expenses. The chairlift was projected at 50. It's gonna come in at 31.6. That's our final bill from our inspector. And our insurance, Jeanette did an incredible job of finding us an alternate arrangement there. It's gonna come in at 17.5 instead of that 22. And originally this year was close to 65. So we're finding ways, when Chris says that we're tirelessly as a team working together, it's true, but we also recognize it's not sustainable what we're doing. As a team, we don't want to burn out and get discouraged, and we see huge opportunity there as we have liftoff. I guess financially, we do have money in the bank. Even the projection that I gave you with some financial info, we have recently gotten $21,000 refunded to us. So we are currently at, within all of our accounts, 39,000 in the bank, with very few accounts payable. Most of our bills are being paid on the day of or the day after, not next year. So that is changing. And yeah, this is a one-time request. We don't plan on being back every year asking for another chunk of money. We just see that this would really put us into a position having no debt at all for the hill if this was wiped out. It's something that we inherited, we had no say over, just like any other board, but this is, we recognize it's a big ask, but it would also give us a huge boost in morale to keep on going and find a way as a board.
Okay, Councillor Goodwin.
So if I understand it correctly, the SEBA loan is if you pay the 40, the 20 that you had, it now becomes, I mean, it's probably already been spent because it was brought in before you guys even got there, but it now doesn't come any further detriment. Am I correct on that?
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. The other question I had was on the financial projections. Like I'm seeing, I don't know much about ski hill finances, so I'm just asking these questions on the numbers that are here. Are those projections based on things that have happened in the past and they're kind of regular for the season? If the season goes decently, these numbers are sort of predictable.
Yeah,
Thank you for asking the question. Or you?
Yes, no, thank you for asking that question, Don. And I do actually have the 4 most current fiscals with me, and the two out of the 4 years that were fully operational would fall very close in line to those numbers projected.
So they're based on realistic. They're not as you see on Shark Tank, where where those numbers come from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay. No, I appreciate that very much. And the rest of it sort of reflects that there was care taken with these numbers. So
I have those income statements if you'd like to see as well for reference.
they probably actually they're not necessarily part of the application, but they would certainly not hurt to have.
The last casino that you were able to have, was it quite a while ago, or are you due for another one?
It'll be another year for sure.
Yeah.
We got the money in November.
Yeah.
So it'll be November 25.
Yeah, okay, good.
There was one thing I just wanted to add with the inspection that we had down on the hill, on the lifts and the T-bar. I believe Tanya had budgeted 50,000 for this cost. So, or 55 even, the last time we spoke to her. So there's a little savings here for council. This doesn't save us money, the fact that we were able to get it down to 31, because you guys pay that bill anyway. But there's 20,000 bucks that kind of is found money, the way I look at it. Because you actually thought it was gonna be 50.
Well, that's an interesting. line of thought.
There's 20,000 bucks that
Just happened
showed up for
nicely.
In a roundabout way, are you asking for the 20,000?
Well, we would surely be happy to take that,
Yeah,
since it was, I know you guys have to work on the old budget, that
Yeah.
was budgeted.
Well, it's good to take note. Yeah. Counselors, any further questions on?
Part of the bills being paid on time too, and this was a conversation with John Gibson, who performed the inspection, was just even knowing that this inspection is going to happen, knowing these expenses are going to happen, if we can be somewhat proactive with them and book, 6, 9, 12 months in advance, then they can plan to have an efficient trip out here, because it is a trip, right? So in the past, there would be the phone call a week or two before, or a month or two before, and that would also help with ballooning costs. So just being aware of those things helps as well financially.
Good. Counselors, last opportunity.
The other thing, if I can add, sorry, is we are going to talk with Northern Sunrise County shortly. And our ask for them is going to be financial support for a general manager. We've been general managing the hill among the 5 of us, and it's not sustainable. And we've had many good talks with Tanya over the last 4 months that we've been involved. And it's very evident that this is just a cycle. Someone takes over running the hill, they do great guns for a couple of years, they burn out. Someone, for 60 years, this problem has been happening. And when we prepared for the anniversary, and I was reading old archives from the Gazette, there's countless years they didn't open. Too broke, can't even put snow on the hill. And I was surprised to see that actually for the entire 60 years, it's been a battle of funding. And so people lose confidence in the hill. It's been open, isn't it? Should we even buy ski supplies for the kids this year? No, it's probably not worth it. Can't count on misery. And we're really trying to change that. And we think the only way to change that is to have a full-time manager who takes care of the insurance and make sure bills get paid and can book the hill for events. And so that will be our ask to Northern Sunrise.
Is he a manager for the entire year or?
Yeah,
is
this is
he-
the 12-month manager. This is to book events. This is to coordinate staffing and volunteers for downhill mountain biking, all the ski, anything to do with the chalet. And potentially, depending on the conversation with them, we'd like to find an outdoor manager too, because it's year round. When that hill shuts down, there's still probably 2 months worth of work at the hill yet to prepare for ski season. Between the snowcat and lifts and grooming and whatever else you gotta do. Yeah.
Well, thank you for all your work on the ski hill this past year and forward as well. And we definitely hope you don't get too tired out because as Cheryl says, that's kind of been a cycle in the past and it's understandable. But maybe there's ways forward that will change that cycle and maintain interest, like you say, and onwards and upwards, because it's definitely a good opportunity. Oh, we have one question here.
And what is your ask for the general manager? Do you know how much that would, what number do you have in mind for that?
We've discussed a couple numbers. If it was to be one manager, probably 75,000 per year. So we'd go in asking for probably 2 years of wages to be paid on that manager. If we're going to add an additional outdoor manager, it's going to be somewhere about 125,000. So it's significant. It's pretty significant. But what our goal is, if we can get it to the point in 2 years that it can operate on its own and we found the right people, it should be able to stand on its own two legs. Like historically, financially, if the hill's running and there's proper preparation, even making snow, we do get cold weather, we can make snow. If someone's proactive and can do that, there's no reason why we can't have a decent season. So those projections, on an average year should support the hill on its own. And then having mountain biking and all the chalet events and all that stuff, it should be able to be sustainable. We shouldn't have to be coming for money all the time.
I agree, it's a good move. Yeah, and if Northern Sunrise can't do it, or can only partially fund it, then we'll have to keep searching. Different ways to fund that, come back to you guys, go to Northern Lights, go to the other guys to see if they can.
Yeah, we're not gonna stop. This hill's not going anywhere. It's been your.
No, we hope not.
It's not going anywhere. It's a big part of our. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and admin and then council will get back to you.
Yep.
Hopefully in the next couple months, I guess, would say,
Sounds good.
if not sooner. Well, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you for being proactive as well. Okay, council, the other application we did have on our agenda was the Grants to Organizations presentation, Peace River Pride Society. They are not here. So admin will, I guess, go forward with their application and get back to us. And the Pride application was for $1,000 to what looks like pay for quarterly Pride pool parties. So, and they're asking for $1,000 for that matter. The record. Okay. So we don't have any motions from those, I don't think. So we're on to bylaws. Apparently we don't have any bylaws. Unfinished business. I just find it amazing. We never have any unfinished business. But we have new business, and we have the rural renewal stream application fee. Mr. Director Bell.
You. Just wanted to note, I have a booklet of raffle tickets for Mosquito. If anyone would like to visit me later. Council, before you is a report around the rural renewal stream program, specifically putting in place an application fee. The Economic Development Committee, as per council's direction on February 13th meeting, explored their options around this program, submitted an application to the province, and they are utilizing their resources through their budget. But one of the other options that they looked at was instilling a application fee to each business that applies to the program to help offset costs, is specifically the hiring of a staff member. Our current capacity, we're unable to actually staff this program itself. We're already receiving inquiries about it quite regularly. The application fee, the committee reviewed and passed a motion at their last meeting, was an application fee of $500. We would be one of two communities that we're aware of at this time, though we didn't do an exhaustive search of every single community that's offering the program, if there was an application fee being applied. We're presenting council with a number of options. Option one being to approve the $500 new application fee, specifically for the town's rural renewal stream program. Option two is to decline to approve the fee. Council may choose to recommend a differing amount if you would so choose. Administration does recommend the adoption as per the Economic Development Committee's recommendation for a $500 fee.
Thank you. Councilors, questions? So Business X wants to apply to the program. They would pay $500 to as part of their application process, and they'd be in the system, whatever the system leads them to. And part of the $500, from reading this, it's to help offset the cost of a casual employee.
Correct.
So the employee would be by the town of Peace River. But probably the full cost would not be offset, so the EDC committee would.
As we anticipate that a fair amount, if not all, should be covered by an application fee.
Okay. Questions, counselors? Someone care to put forth a motion? Focus our discussion? I can go forward. Counselor Shannon?
Option one, I'll move that the town council provide a letter of support endorsing an application to the rural renewal stream of the town of Peace River Economic Development Committee, provided the committee to able to allocate resources to support program implementation.
That's the backup. That's the report. Sorry.
Oh, option one.
Yeah, approves the 500 application fee.
Oh, okay, so, yeah, I'm a little ahead here. The council approves a $500 application fee for application to the town's rural renewal stream program.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? It is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bell. And before Director Bell leaves the chair, we're now talking, I'm gonna get mine. Are we doing the,
Grants organizations.
okay, the voting association application grants to organizations?
Just a note for council, just updating, refreshing. I did notice, we were missing the full budget of the voting association for their event, and it's just been uploaded. So if you refresh your Civic Web screens, you'll see the full budget of the voting association. They had their revenue stated in their application, but their full budget amount, more the expense component, was a separate document, so it was missed when I passed that along. My apologies to the administrative assistant. So their full budget expenditures are 58,644, and they have a breakdown of their overall expenses. Council, we're providing you an opportunity to make a decision this evening on the Peace River Voting Association's application. They did a presentation to council at a previous meeting. So to keep in practice of what we've done previously is once an organization has had the opportunity to speak to their application, we bring forward the RFD for council's decision-making. It's a note that we don't necessarily compare applications against each other. They're to stand on their own. So that is a significant rationale of why we're presenting you with this particular RFD this evening and not any of the rest. Those organizations presented this evening, so they'll come at the next regular meeting. And we'll have to see about Pride Society if they'd still like to present. Then they may have an opportunity, and we'll bring that decision making at a later time. So the scoring is meant to be one element of decision making council can choose to utilize. In this particular case, ironically, 2 independent evaluations were done completely, actually not even in the same building, and the numbers came out exactly the same for the voting association. The scoring is out of total points of 41. Again, scoring is not intended for comparison, but it's another tool for council's assessment. Administration does provide you with 2 options, $5,000, or sorry, to provide the voting association their request in the amount of $5,000 as per their application. Your second option is to provide direction as to the amount that council should like to choose to fund this applicant. The application was very thorough. It fits the criteria of the policy to a T. It's a significant event in your community, hence the recommendation of your administration to fund the applicant to its full amount of $5,000.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, yeah.
Just a comment on the voting association and the river. Having been in council a number of times, regardless of the expert that's come to the town to talk about Peace River, one of the overwhelming comments that I hear from virtually everybody and every marketing person has come and said that Peace River has managed to turn its back on the river for 100 years. And they've used that term a number of different times. In that, if you go to a lot of places that have a river, you can get a meal by the river. You can now do that, but they don't have a hotel by the river. They don't have this by the river. I remember when I first came here, if you said to somebody who had just come to Peace River, they've been here for a couple hours, you'd say, take me to the river. How do I get to the river? There was no signage, and there still isn't much, saying, if you want to dip your feet in Peace River, here's where you can go. And the boating association has done as much work as anybody I've seen in trying to promote the river. And I think that has to be recognized. So I'm not going to talk about the number right now, but I think we have to keep focus on how important the river is to our history, our identity of who we are, and why people move here. They're not moving to Peace River up on the flatland. They're moving to Peace River down by the river. Mayor Mann used to call it the prettiest place on the planet. I think everybody here recognizes how gorgeous it is. And I think it's important that we recognize it and do what we can promote. Probably one of the most major assets that we have and how we can link things to it. So that's all I really wanted to say, and I think it's really important.
Thank you. I just have a question on the finances. So council allocated 35,000 to this grants to groups program for this year, right?
Correct.
And so we did not, do we have any intake on the March?
No, we
So-
were past that date, so we're only having 2 intakes for 2023. There's a September 15th intake.
Okay, so that's why it was divided into 2 rather than taking the first third and adding
That's
it
right.
to the.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was wondering where 17 came from.
Yes.
No, but
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, any further questions on this application? It was complete, because I see that's one of the check marks that people have to submit their financial records,
And they did.
which I'm kind of wondering about in some other cases there.
Yeah.
But yes,
Mine is more a comment with bringing theirs forward for decision at this point without doing it with all the rest. Are we gonna run short of money doing that? Say we give them $5,000
Nope.
like they're asking.
Yeah, you were well within the 17,500. The total request is in the chart. Based on the total request that we received on each application and utilizing, we had to guess also what the Underground Music Society was actually asking for. We sort of took the
We're still guessing.
Yeah. revenue versus the expense, and it was about a $700 ask. You would be under the 17,500 budget. The total ask is 14,200. Yeah.
so if in the end, the 14,200 gets given out this time, then the difference between the 17,500 and that goes to the last half,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay, any other comments on the application? Someone care to put forth a motion that would help us on this? That sounds like good.
Well, I spoke earlier, I'll speak on this. I'd move option 1, which provide 5,000 to the Peace River Boating Association as per their application request.
Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor? Good, and good luck to their events for this year. Okay, next up, we have the business grants policy. Acting Director Murray.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to present the business grant policy for council's approval. We've been working on this for quite some time now. Just a quick highlight of the previous history. So we started this back in October 22, when council directed staff to undertake a business grant survey, which we did. We publicized and received lots of comments and feedback on the type of business grants that the community and the business community in particular might be interested in. Based on the results of those surveys, subject to budget approval, we realized that we would be headed for a business revitalization grant, a tourism enhancement, and a facade improvement grant. In the 2023 budget, we have had $50,000 approved for these grants. So we began to prepare a draft policy. In doing so, we have ended up with a policy that establishes 2 grants. It rolls business revitalization and facade improvement into one category. And there's also the tourism enhancement. So we did present a draft version of the policy to council previously, earlier this month. Since that time, we have further refined the policy. We've also taken it to the Economic Development Committee and had some comments and feedbacks from that group. And we've prepared the related administrative materials, meaning the application, the evaluation, and the reporting form that we've been using for this initial round. Based on all of that work, we have made some specific changes to the policy that we'd like to highlight for council. Previously, we had drafted the policy to be a first come, first serve on application review and grant award. We've replaced that with a review of the applications submitted during a defined intake period, similar to the grants to groups. And we have also directed that the EDC, who is the administrative body that will be reviewing and awarding the grant monies, would prioritize the projects based on some principles that we set out in the policy. We've also clarified the reporting requirements for anybody who receives the grant. And we've also clarified the eligible expense types of the grant. Additionally, the amounts of the grant have been tweaked as well. So we have lowered the minimum grant to $2,500. And for grants that are between $2,500 and $5,000, we have allowed for a matching of up to 50% to allow the grant to reach some smaller businesses who have smaller amounts of money at their disposal, and something that we can facilitate also some smaller projects with. And we've also clarified that corporate outlets that operate within the town are not eligible for the grant. So we're not targeting this to the large corporate stores. That being said, locally owned franchises are eligible. So as far as I'm aware, Walmart is Tim Hortons would be in if they wanted to take advantage. For the EDC, the primary conversation that we had, apart from them being happy that we're proceeding with the grant, was a recommendation that applicants for the grant not be required to provide 2 quotes for costs associated with the project. The EDC did have a number of rationale for this recommendation. Primarily, they were aiming to minimize the application process burden. They want to make sure that business owners have flexibility in who they hire. Also, they are recognizing that the applicants would also be bearing a portion of the cost between 50 and 75% of the total project cost, or that being the minimum amount. So they likewise would have an interest in keeping costs in check. And that we are requiring the applicant to provide proof of invoices and payment prior to receiving grant funds. Therefore, the quotes would not be a necessary step. That being said, the grant policy is currently presented with the requirement for quotes in the policy. That is consistent with our own purchasing policy, which directs staff to acquire quotes up to 3 quotes if possible for purchases between $1,000 and $30,000. It's also consistent with the practices of a number of municipalities that have similar projects, including Edmonton, Drumheller, Grand Prairie, Whiteport, the regional municipalities of Buffalo, and Wetaskiwin. We did find a few examples where that's not the case. Specifically Fort St. John in BC and Fairview, one of our neighbors. However, the cost of construction or the amount of funding that was provided for those programs was less, and invoices and proof of payment were still required. So we're not intending to restrict business owners' choice of contractor, but we do want to ensure that the limited grant funds are expended efficiently. Funding award decisions could be influenced by the lower costs or by the costs that are presented within a variety of quotes, and knowing what those quote numbers are will help inform can help inform the grant amount. Ultimately, recipients may use the contractor of their choice to complete the work. So council has the option to direct administration to remove those clauses that address the requirement for quotes. The specific numbers are highlighted here. However, it is our recommendation to proceed with the policy as written so that it is consistent with our own purchasing policy. And that way we're aiming to make sure that the financial prudence, transparency, and accuracy of program administration is maximized. So we have provided for you both the good copy of the policy for approval, but as well, we've got the track changes version so that you can see all of the tweaks and edits to the document that have been made since it was previously presented to council. And then we've also attached the program application, evaluation, and report template for your information. I can take any questions that you might have. If there are none, then I'll just highlight, I think I've already said it, but our recommendation is to approve the grant policy as presented.
Thank you. Any councilors questions? Councilor Good, did you have one?
Yeah, I don't even know if this is a real question, or it's just something I thought when I was reading this, is that, let's say I'm applying for, but pick a number, $10,000. I'm applying for $10,000, I'm gonna put out one quote for the work that I want done. So I hire my kids, or I hire my family members to put in the bid for the work that's gonna be done. To me, there's while I may get a really good deal if I'm gonna cheap out on my kids, but I could also not cheap out on my kids and give my kids a really good paycheck for the work and get minimal amount of work done, but it's only one quote, so I have no control over it. And I'm not saying that people would do that, but I think that there's an opening there that's kind of wide enough to drive a truck through to either double dip or to divert part of the money that's going into the program. I'm going to get X amount of money to do the improvement on my house. I'm going to get X amount of money, improvement on my business. I'm also going to get some money to do improvement on my pool.
So I think Councilor Good, there is an element in this policy, is there not, where you have to get quotes in that case?
Well, there's a thing where you have to present invoices at the end to show that the work was done. I saw that part. So
Right now, there's both. There's a requirement for quotes as part of the application, and then also prior to the grant actually being dispersed, the money transferring, we require as invoice and proof of actual payment.
right, and I'm just saying that I know that in some organizations, there are policies that you can't really do that. You can't really involve your family in the structure of it. And I'm not sure it's always a bad thing. Everything being fair. It just makes sure that there's, I just have I have a worry that there could be some diversion here. That done, I don't know, done without some kind of oversight or some kind of, at least a statement saying that there's.
So a couple of things. One thing that I believe we have in here, is that any contractor who is doing work on behalf of a project is required to have a town of Peace River business license. So unless you're doing the work yourself, which we have provided for within the quote policy as well, if you're doing that, you have to still provide quotes to establish the value of the work that you're doing yourself. But if not, then you are expected to hire a contractor who has a valid town of Peace River business license. So whether or not that's family or not, that doesn't speak to that directly, but it does essentially require that that contractor is a formal business.
So does 29.1.4.2 speak to this discussion a little bit, or is it different? 29.142.
I believe that's That's the one that speaks to requiring two quotes if you're doing the work yourself to still establish the value. Yeah. But that doesn't speak to family, but if you're not doing the work yourself, then you are required to provide independent quotes that still establish that value, and they do have to have business licenses, so.
Sounds pretty good, thanks. Tim?
Yeah.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Ford?
I think that just answered my question. So if I'm hearing you correctly, the EDC wanted to get rid of the quotes, but according to the policy, we still have to have a minimum of 2. And our purchasing policy says up to 3.
If there, we still need 2, if they're doing it themselves. They need 1 and they're contracting away from themselves.
With the business license.
No, in either case, the number that's established is 2, but you would be getting 2 and then doing the work yourself, so in that case, you're not using either of the 2 quotes.
Other questions? Okay, I have a couple. In section 10 and section 11. Applications will be reviewed on a first come, first served basis, so we're gonna do that. And then 11, grant funds will be based on application meeting the eligibility. So all that means is if somebody hands in an application today and somebody else tomorrow, mine gets reviewed first, not decided first, reviewed first. So I just look at first, okay, got that. Then I was wondering about 30.3. Grant funds will be dispersed once the grant report has been submitted and administration has determined that the project matches the approved proposal. So it sounds like you have to do the report before you're going to get your money. Is that right?
Yes, because the report is where you would also attach your invoices and proof of payment.
Okay, because then I go back to number 24. And it says successful applicants that do not submit the required grant report must return any grant funds received to date within 30 days of the report deadline and so on. So would they get money if they haven't submitted the report? Or is that different?
No, that's a good catch. Madam Mayor, I meant to, I thought about dealing with that one, but I didn't actually get to that edit.
So it would be after the grant report gets submitted that they get money. And if you never submit your report, it's nice you did the work and you paid for it yourself. Okay, and there was something else here. When are the tourism grant funds released? Like all the reporting business seems to have come under business but revitalization grant. But does this report business also apply to the tourism grant or kind of not?
So it does, that section on recognition and reporting, including section 24 that you were just referring to, which I would suggest we edit out between, it would just read successful applicants do not submit the required grant report will not be eligible to apply for future grants until all requirements have been met.
And they're not paid though either.
Yes, so that part would fall under that part would still apply to the tourism application.
Okay, so then under the tourism enhancement grant, that whole chunk, does all the process requirements and all of that from the business part apply to the tourism part? I'm probably complicating this more than I need to read into it, but.
No, you're providing some good feedback. We should move some of them. Yeah.
I think that's all I'm really asking, that they be moved around so the tourism people know what they're doing.
Yes.
And if it's the same as the business revitalization, maybe they could be.
Yeah, leveled up to the apply to all.
And the other thing I noticed on section 36 application review, 36.1 refers to 34.2, which I think we needed renumbering from something. Because I don't think there's a 34.2. You follow?
Yes, it would be 34.1.
Okay. Counselors, do you have any further question on that part of this, briefing note? Counselor Carr,
That, just for clarification, it is 25% that the town is contributing to whatever their project is that correct?
Up to 25% for grants that are $5,001 or up to $25,000. So if you've applied for $5,001, then the applicant would be required to put in $15,003 at least.
Yeah.
To receive that amount.
okay, then my next part has to do, if I was applying for one of these grants, I am looking through the application part of things. And it seems to me that the business grant program seems to, well, I guess it's more money maybe, but it seems to be formatted differently than the tourism grant program. So I'm looking at page, I don't know what page it is. In the big thing is 104 and 105, but I don't know what it is within this presentation. So there's the tourism enhancement grant page with all the yeses and nos. There's the business grant program report. And I think what I'm saying, I need to revise it. We need a tourism grant report if we have a business grant report.
So the business grant language is actually the language that captures both the tourism enhancement and the business revitalization.
So maybe just the title needs to change then to incorporate both. Otherwise, I just think, well, this is the business grant. What am I doing with my tourist report?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, that's I think what I came up with. Other counselors? Okay, would someone put forth a motion with respect to this matter?
So in terms of the amendments that you've suggested, how would we best proceed on this? Can we do as amended, or is that premature?
I would be comfortable going as amended because we'll outline those amendments. So it's just repositioning of and the one change in Article 24.
Yes.
And so when the minutes come back for adoption, you'll see those outlined.
Okay. So then in that being said, then I'll move that council approve the business grant program policy as amended.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you, Ms. Modi, for you and the admin work on that one. Okay, next step, we have business, I don't know, Main Street concrete repair capital project update, also Ms. Modi.
Yes, this is just a quick update to continue our practice of keeping council in the loop on where we're at with our capital projects. So this is one related to the Main Street concrete repair project. This was approved this year for $294,000. And it's the first year of a proposed 3-year project. The scope of the project is to replace approximately 1.5 kilometers worth of brick or field concrete sidewalk along Main Street and then around the corner to the TJ's Avenue. It includes the replacement with what's expected to be tinted concrete so that we are maintaining the aesthetic of having that two-tone. And we're also hoping to accomplish some street tree replacements and storm catch basin replacements and parapet repairs throughout the area as well. So we closed this project RFP in late April, and we received 4 qualified proposals. The difference in fees between the highest and the lowest was approximately $80,000. And we evaluated it based on our standard evaluation criteria for our RFPs for engineering. The key project milestones that we've achieved so far, we did award the project to Bear Stone Associates on May 17th. We had a kickoff meeting on June 6th. We did a site walkthrough with the consultants on the 14th, and we also had a stakeholder meeting with Alberta Transportation on June 21st. We are coordinating with Alberta Transportation because they are also working on a proposal or getting a design work done so that they can go out and tender a mill and pave project that would start on Main Street and then go all the way down Main Street, up Judah Hill and out past outside of town limits. So it is fortuitous timing, but also challenging us to coordinate between the two. So we want to make sure that we maximize our efficiencies and get as much underground work for that we be touching done as possible before they do that, but they are moving quickly. So if all goes according to their plans, which right now the design is approved and they're working on it, actual tender and award and that work is, I think, still a decision to be confirmed. So we'll provide any additional updates that we have on the project as we move forward, but I can take any questions that you might have. I'll go to the board.
So given that we always get blamed for potholes on Main Street, does that mean we also get to take credit for Main Street when we repave it? Because I'm good with that if you guys are.
What we did. Any further discussion, questions? Well, thank you for the update. It's good to know so we can pass it along to those that ask us. Will the councillor be prepared to put forth a motion? Councillor Wojciech, maybe?
Sure.
Number 4.
I'll make a motion that we accept the briefing note regarding Main Street concrete repair for information.
Thank you. All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Director Modi. Next one, Alberta Municipalities Conference, CAO Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, hate to wish my summer away and bring forward anything for the fall, but the fall convention has been announced for AM, which is September 27th to September 29th. It's in Edmonton here. And the current council remuneration policy does require an enabling motion be put forward. So we're looking to see who would be attending so we can make the appropriate reservations and the enabling motion to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Wednesday, September 27th through, I guess, Friday the 29th, probably start Wednesday morning. So it means getting down there on Tuesday. And sometimes there's a EOEP course the day prior. So when maybe more information about what that course is would come out. But is anybody interested in going to this conference? We'll show of hands. It's in Edmonton this year, close within HMP. Looks like we've got about 5 counselors at this point in time. So maybe somebody would put forth an enabling motion. Councillor Good.
Yeah, I'm just gonna bring it from here. I'll move the council enable all members of council to attend the 2023 Alberta Municipalities Conference.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? So probably admin will be sending around a notice asking us to sign up so things can vote. Thank you. Okay, number 6 is revised council remuneration, travel and expense policy draft. CAO Miller.
Thank you. So, before you for consideration and to begin the discussion is a revised council remuneration, travel and expense policy. So as you're aware, one of my objectives is to bring forward a policy for consideration, and I have done quite a bit of research and taken quite a few examples from municipalities in the province. I should say at first that normally this discussion wouldn't come to the council table like this. It would normally be presented and started at a GMP meeting, but given the policy and the importance of it, and we don't have a GMP meeting for some time, we brought it forward to council to start the discussion. So the revised policy that was brought before you streamlines the process. So what I've heard mostly is everything and what should or shouldn't be covered underneath the honorarium that is paid. So again, I studied a number of policies throughout the province, and the best practice that I've noticed is pretty much a flat rate for your honorarium, and it is all inclusive, and then a bit of a per diem for when you have those special one-day trips for conventions and whatnot that take you out of your home community for a couple of days or a day at a time to attend. So that's what the policy kind of shows and reflects. So some changes you would really notice again. In this policy, there's a significant reduction in the number of events that you would be applying for asking or seeking per diem compensation. Almost everything is underneath the flat rate. So again, time spent at special events or conferences would require a per diem to be applied for. Accountability for attendance at the different events would be able to be accomplished through a submission of a GMP, and it would just kind of state essentially where you attended and anything you wanted to add to that. And then that would be posted on the website along with any per diem claims. Something new to this policy, we briefly talked about it during budget discussion and whatnot, is that there's a professional development component in this policy and in future budget. So everybody, when you go to attend conferences or whatever, that really is professional development. And the thought is that everybody really knows what you need to learn and grow in your area. So, you know, somebody may think public speaking is important, somebody else might think negotiating is important. So the individual budgets then enables individual counselors to decide what kind of training they want to take and what kind of conferences they want to attend. Because really, you know, you may think it's important for public speaking, but if you have to ask the rest of your council, well, you may or may not get a favorable response, but it's important for you in your duties. So we've introduced a little bit of individual budgets. And what else is in here? And then something else, again, which is a new concept in this budget or this policy, is then establishing a review every election term. And it would be a review done by members of the public at large, a small committee put forth, a task force, and it would be their responsibility then to go out and evaluate all the policies and what's being compensated right now, and then come back with recommendations and a report to council. And then from there, council would choose to accept the recommendations or alter the recommendations or reject them. And then that would put the policy forward for the next council moving forward and how they would be remunerated through their term. So I think it's no surprise that most often people, when they run for council, quite often they have absolutely no awareness of the responsibility and the workload and the impact on your personal and professional life. And so quite often, when they have an awareness, they underestimate the value of the work that's being performed and the importance of the work that's being performed. So it's never a good idea for a new council to try to put a value on the monthly honorarium. So it's always best if the outgoing council at least initiates that part for the new council to come on board. So then they're not trying to make decisions in the outboard council in conjunction with the recommendations of the public members at large that form that task force. So then the new council coming in doesn't have to make those decisions on something they really have no idea. Because you haven't done the work. You haven't done the work, right? So if that gets done, it gets done in the third year. Most often it's done in the year before election is the policies that I've seen. And then it goes into place after election. So it's there. I hope everybody had a great opportunity to read it. And again, I didn't put any dollar values in here because I wanted to talk about policy and the principles or the philosophy. The philosophy is everything's under one umbrella. Except for a few honorariums. And within the policy then, it speaks to so many honorariums per counselor and so many honorariums for the mayor. So I believe in here I put 15 honorariums for council, and out of that 15, or per diem, sorry, did I put 15 for council? And I think there was 8 that are specific. So 4 of those 15 were for AUMA, and then we have strategic planning and we have budgeting sessions, and then outside of those sessions, then it still gave 7 more full days of pay for per diem to attend convention. So for example, Deputy Mayor Ford, I know you like to go to the policing convention that you just attended. So that would be one or two of your 7 days, for example. Councilor Shannon would like to go to EDA, for example. Those would be perhaps some of your days, but it gives you that flexibility on how you, as an individual counselor, want to use your per diem days. And then separately, so there's days, if individual counselors would have your set days, then there would be a budget to go with that, right? And we're analyzing that right now on what is the average. So there's certain things we know everybody goes to. Everybody goes to AUMA. We know that there's the Growing North Conference. We know there's the Women's Conference. There's certain things that are year after year after year, and we know. So we will make sure that those get adequately budgeted for. The budget or the policy as it's been presented as well contemplates everybody going to AUMA every year, but contemplates every counselor being able to go to FCM twice during their term. Because FCM usually rotates back and forth, once in Western, once in. So as the policy was written right now, the mayor would have enough per diem days to attend FCM every year. And then the individual counselors would have the ability to attend twice. But out of your money, your budget, not per diem budget, but out of your budget to attend functions, the policy as it's written enables you to carry forward some of your registration money, for example. So, because if you want to fly down, so if the policy says you can attend all the Western ones, the FCM, but you want to go to Halifax, it might take you 2 years with your money. You might have saved some of your money this year to pay to go next year to that event. And I can sketch this out next time. I will write some examples, you know, just to show you how the budget would work, right? But again, I'm just trying to talk philosophically. Philosophically, there'd be a number of per diem days, full days, and then it would be individual councils' discretion on how you want to use it, and what you want to attend, and how you want to use your per diem days. Okay, and then otherwise you just get a flat rate. So it is what it is, and it's all inclusive.
So our committee meetings would be under that,
Yes.
but we all have different committee meetings and different amounts of committee meetings. How would that?
Yes, you do. So it would be really best that when people take on committees, that they try to make it as equivalent as possible. Yeah.
So that is the question, I think, Councillor Shannon. So that is one of these principal discussions. So agree with the principal or suggest a different principle, I think, right? Because I know what you're saying. Sometimes somebody could be on 6 committees and the next person could be on 2 committees. Somebody can only attend committee meetings at night, somebody can attend them anytime. So all of that, and really tonight is a good night for discussing this and figuring out a few things like that. So with respect to the committee part of things, Councillor Shannon, any suggestion at the moment? We can circle back to it.
I just wanted to know that.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Sure, I've spoken about this a couple of times, like GMP and one other council meeting, so, I really like the idea of the per diems where a counselor has a budget and they can choose what conference they go to, but they can't go over that budget in a year, but if it's, you don't use it all, it carries over. Is there the option, for instance, let's say if I don't use all of my budget, but Mark is going to all these homelands conferences, that money can be given to him to attend another conference, or is that? Oh,
I guess that's entirely up to council if you wanted to have that
It would have to be a council.
amongst
decision or
yourselves.
Bilateral.
But going back to my previous point, like I say, I like the idea about the per diems and that budget per counselor. But I'm gonna stick to my guns on what I spoke about before. So base rate stays the same, does not change. The only thing that goes on your time sheets is your meetings and your committee meetings. If I can use the term fluff. So for instance, if the deputy or if the mayor can't make it to an event where you bring greetings, stuff like that should be under your base salary. And then I also read in here about cell phones and being reimbursed for a cell phone. I would, my own opinion, I would totally remove that. And the reason being, I think everybody around the table here has I have a work phone, but I have a personal phone and I'm on a plan. And just because a phone call is forwarded to me from the town cell number, it doesn't cost me anything on my plan whatsoever. The only thing that would cost me is if I was on a pay and talk.
So we'll maybe
But-
get to part of your elements here.
Yeah, but the part that I do, like when it comes to committee meetings, if that base, there again, we get back to the base rate and everything, but it's like, there's the mayor, I know Councillor Shannon, I think Councillor Carr, those three councillors are on the most committees, if I remember correctly.
We would all be paid the same under this. It's not per committee.
No, that's what I'm saying. So for instance, how many committees are you on?
I have no idea. I think it's not very many.
Okay, yourself?
I think 7, but I think 6.
I'm on 3 or 4 and with 2. So like as far as putting all your committee meetings and everything, I don't think it's fair to everybody around the table, especially those that are on a lot more committees, but that's just my own opinion.
I'm just going to speak to that. If you think that council is just committee meetings and you're going to base it's just on committee meetings and the meetings you go to, you make a good point. It isn't. It's not based on that. That's part of what you've done. I think that the one comment you talked about of what you put on your report as to where you've been. I think there's some validity to putting what you've done on that report. So the public can see what you've done. I mean, I take a look at, for example, Shelley, the visits you made to the stores, for example, which I think have a real value to our council and our committees. And pardon me, our council and to our community. And so putting down that you went to that store is valid. You're not getting paid more for doing it because you're not asking for more for doing it. You're just saying as part of what I see my job as a counselor. Whether people agree with how I spend my time doing analysis of provincial economics or whatever is not really the point. The fact is, I've spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours doing it because I believe there's a value to the community for doing that. Putting that in, I think, is legitimate to put that kind of stuff in. I think council's work involves a lot of things that all of us do for our community. It's not based on just the number of committees that we are on. And some of us have lifestyles and careers and jobs that leave us more freedom of time. When I had my own store, for example, I had a lot more freedom when I had an employee to say to that employee, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. I owned my own store, I could do what I wanted. Now I have a job that says, we want you here from 8 till 4:30. I don't have quite the liberty to say, oh, I just don't want to show up today because I really want to go to this whatever here or sit on this committee. I don't think it makes you any less or more valuable as a counselor. In fact, the public didn't, Because when the public made a decision as to who they elected as councillors, I'm not sure that those were the main criteria. I think they took a look at where they saw people who were going to be standing for principles they believed in, who were going to be working to ends that they thought were honorable and noble. And they chose their council based on that. So I'm not trying to just argue against your points, but the fairness of, well, you go to more committees, you should get more, or you go to less, only is addressing that this one small component. I look at the amount of time, Mark, for example, that you put into the homeless stuff, that you are never going to get compensated for. And I'm really serious about that. You're never going to get compensated for it. And let's say you weren't on any other committees, but you were doing just that. Does that mean you're less than more than? I don't see that as a valid criteria. But I think, you know, what Shelley talks about, and I think what you talked about, of putting the things that you do on your report and showing the community what you do, I think has tremendous validity. So those are just a few of my comments on this. I think overall it's a good thing. And I think it's a good starting point.
Councillor Wojciech?
So if we're being compensated by a committee, like I didn't see anywhere in this policy that if we're being compensated from outside of the town, what happens to that? Is that no longer going to be taken into consideration and absorbed in our policy? Because I know there's a few boards and committees that you can get outside compensation from.
But
right?
that's
And-
their thing. That's,
Well, there are a few, but I use North Peace Housing for example, because I'm not on any committee that gets paid by it. So, but North Peace Housing Foundation is not under the Municipal Government Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The counselor who's named for that is not being named as a council, he's not a representative of council. He is a member of the board of directors of the corporation of the North Peace Housing Foundation. All council does is put his name for it. That's it. And after that, they're not. There are other organizations, I know more so in some other communities where you go on these boards and you get paid by the boards or whatever. You're not getting paid by your council for that. In some cases. But if that's one of the examples you're thinking of.
Yeah, that might be outside of the scope, but there's other ones that we get paid. We could either get paid by council or by the board. Like the library one was for one, for example, I showed up and they were handing me paperwork to fill in to get compensated for every board meeting from them. And yet it was, so we should have that.
the
policy when that
municipal library
option is there.
board? Municipal library board?
No, the one that I was the alternate with you up at college.
Peace
At
library.
the Peace Library one.
Peace Library?
They compensate mileage and stuff. You're talking maybe Northern Lights something? which is
Well, it's the
different.
college, whatever
Yeah.
one I was.
It's Northern Lights, that's different again.
Okay, yeah, so I'm not aware of all these, but some will pay us. And so we should have in the policy that we don't accept that, we accept that pay versus town pay, whatever, right? Because I
I
have
think
the
it's
option
in
to
here
say
that you're
no.
not, I think it's in here that you're not double paid.
Well, yeah, well, that,
Well, that would be the situation.
whenever possible, you just say, let the other organization compensate us, like Northeast Housing versus the town compensate. And it's there, right?
Waste management. Like that, isn't it?
So, regarding, committee meetings, we seem to have a little bit of a discussion going on here. So, the ones who haven't spoken about that, Councillor Scanlon.
Well, I think another advantage to the policy as written is then would be incentivize us to be more equitably distributed on that time of being on those committees. So it would, like, I think one thing we also need to keep in mind here philosophically as we're thinking is this is a policy, this policy isn't for me or for you or for your preference, this is policy for the town. So the idea of this policy is to make a better functioning council. So it might not function so well for you, but it's not about you. None of the policies we make are about us, they're about the town. So, and what's better for that? So philosophically, I can see this being a good policy in that it would maybe force is the wrong word, it would incentivize the council of the day to equitably distribute the committees, and that way you'd
As
be
best they could though.
as best as they could, fair enough. But it's one more thing pushing in that direction, and for someone to say, well, all these committees have things that are important to me, so I'll be members on all of them, and then complain that the committees aren't compensating you fairly for your time or enough for your time because of how the policy is written, well, maybe it's time to let some things go.
But it's also, some committees meet every month, some committees meet every 3 months. You know, there's that element in there too. In terms of time, and your time, you know, is important, you're away from your home. Councillor Carr, I don't know, have you spoken on this?
Go ahead. My big concern with it was that we were getting this base salary. And it almost. I didn't feel the taxpayers are getting their value.
You talking about now or?
I'm talking about now. I'm giving the preamble to what this policy is. So I appreciate everything that you did in here, Barb, but my concern is exactly what Deputy Ford had said. If you are on 7 committees, and you're getting paid, and I'm not speaking on behalf of myself, I'm just saying it generally, if I'm sitting on 7 committees and someone else is sitting on no committees and you're getting the same pay, it's really going to, and I'm speaking on a general level because I don't care at all about the money, it is going to cause a problem long term. What I was hoping would appear in this new policy is that the things that you are obliged to show up to, like council meetings, your committee meetings, that sort of thing, that you would be compensated for it. The things that you choose to show up to, such as the powwow, such as the missing women's walk, that sort of thing, that is covered in your base salary. That's what I was hoping for.
If I may,
Yeah.
this is, just, I'm taking issue a bit with only one part of your comment about the big salaries, the national salaries. Well, you said I think your comment was the big salary or the big base. Big base. Yeah, the big base. Is that a lot of the big base was, oh, your rock song. 3. The last time that the council salaries were reviewed was in 2017. And the whole idea at that time was the council took a look and said, you know, what is council being paid? What is the work that is being done? What is the value of the work being done? And where do we sit with other communities that are like us, around us, provincially, where do we sit? And Peace River, I think, was either the lowest or the second lowest paid council in Alberta of towns, including, I think, 6 above us and 6 below us, I think, in population. And it was 6,000, not 6 municipalities and 6,000 below. And Peace River was the lowest, which some people could go as a mark of pride. Other people could sit there and say, you're not going to get good people coming in and working for nothing. I mean, some people can afford to, and that's again their livelihood and their lifestyle. But I've talked to councils in certain places that some people, communities want a council made up primarily of business people who are working in the community because developers, because they're invested in the community. Other communities want more retired people, the demographic that other people consider important. Well, your availability for certain functions can be quite easily determined based on those 2 criteria. So the council at the time took a look and said, where do we sit? And the variations that were made in the remuneration at that time, and this was in 2017, were put in place to bring Peace River up to an average position of council remuneration in the province. Not high, not low, but to meet the average, so that a councillor in Peace River was compensated in a manner comparable to councils elsewhere. So I just think you have to keep that context in mind. That's what the intention was not to get so people got rich being on council, because trust me, nobody gets rich being on council. Well, I can't really say that, because I know that there's a couple of councils where you could do $100,000 a year plus by being on council. Most of the councilors, if you take the, I don't know if we're going to become something that could come back, and I think it's part of what you're doing, am I correct? Barb, and I correct you if I'm correct, CAO, no, you're gonna be bringing back comparisons of us, and I think that's one thing that we should take a look at is where are we actually setting now? Because I don't know the exact numbers of where we sit in our remuneration now and how other communities are being remunerated. And I think you were also going to bring some of that back for the future, and now is to have a general discussion around it. Am I correct on that? But just to understand that that was the purpose behind the changes to the policies that occurred in 12, 6, 7 years ago. It wasn't to just give people really huge paychecks. Yeah.
Councillor Carr.
And I stand corrected on your comment, Brad.
I did not say anything big.
Oh, okay.
My one question, what you just said is they reviewed several communities and we were on the low end, low to middle end. Based on what? Based on dollar value, based on economic position of the community, based on what?
Well, I mean.
Because there's a lot has to be included.
Well, maybe it does, and maybe it doesn't, that's a larger conversation. Because you could say that a restaurant that's not doing much money should pay its, the staff should be willing to work for less because the restaurant's not doing as well. Other people would say that the staff should get paid more because they got to put up with more. I mean, it depends, so I'm just saying that that's not a given that those things are necessarily good criteria. But and I'm not sure if they were considered, and maybe they should have been. But what was considered was where are the councilors ending up? Because we didn't have, in a lot of cases, a total examination of what policies they had in place, which is, I think, a valid thing to add to it. But when we took a look at the communities around us, comparable size, it was mostly done on population, but they were all over the province. I mean, there was Devon, I can't think of some others, there was Devon and a few others. There were 12 communities, and Peace River was the lowest, but we have also one of the most difficult, in some ways, physically difficult communities to administer. So shouldn't you get paid more? I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that's a question that can come up. So these are tough questions to examine if you're willing to be open-minded and look at all of the criteria. It's not simple. It's not. I'm going to use an analogy I used years ago when somebody came to me and said X person was being paid way too much. And I said, how do you know that? He said, well, they're the highest paid person in this position in this area. And I said, okay, I'm going to use your statement as we go forward from here. What is it? Well, they're the highest paid position. They should not get that. That's too high. I said, okay, let's get rid of them. Let's knock them down to the next level. So you get rid of that person because they're the highest paid. They were getting paid too much. You get rid of them. Well, the next person is now the highest paid person in that position in the province. Well, you got to get rid of them using the same logic you used on the last guy. And where it ends up is you got to go to the average because your logic's faulty. The fact that they were the highest or the lowest is in and of itself irrelevant and meaningless and tells you nothing. It's only a statement that sounds good on the surface. Oh, they're paid way too much. How do you know that they're the highest paid? Well, you don't know any of the criteria.
So in this though, we're looking at whether or not these principles as laid out here are ones that we would go forward with. And I'm hearing a lot of discussion about appointed committees, and then I heard regular council meeting type things versus other things, which some, I forget what the term was, but community events, let's call it that. So I think we need to be able to give administration a go forward on this particular matter. Right now, the way this is written, council monthly honorarium will include payment for, meetings, no matter how long they are or how short they are, appointed committee meetings. Basically, those two things are what I guess we're discussing here. So, yes.
I'm wondering, because I did do extensive review of policies throughout the province. And it does sound scary, but scary and that what if I get paid and that person doesn't work as much and whatever, and I'm wondering if council would consider calling a few peers that this policy applies to a similar policy, because obviously this discussion, the same feelings would have been expressed around all of those council tables moving from an honorarium to a flat. And so, and they've been in practice for some time in a lot of the municipalities. So I'm just wondering if council would call a couple of their peers, if I gave, here's half a dozen, and just ask, how does it go for them? How do you feel? Do you feel if it's inequitable? Do you feel like you're getting, how does your constituents feel? Before you make that directional decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like the ones I have talked to, frankly, they're into the half day and more than half day type of thing. So if something lasts less than half a day, it's X dollars. If it's something more than half a day, it's Y dollars. And usually there's also something about expectations within their municipality about attending stuff. So I'll throw that in there a little bit as well. We're really wanting this policy though to it come to fruition within the next couple of months. So you should keep that timeline in mind, because the way it is right now, frankly, is not a good way to go forward and stress over each month, in my opinion. So I want to go around once again, and I want to hear specifically councillors on the question of meeting time and committee meetings. Should they be included in the base amount or not? And we're all going to go and ask whoever else we can come back with whatever. But at this point in time, just to be clear, should the committee and the council meeting types of meetings be included in the base salary? That is my question. So Mark, or pardon me, Council Boychuk, what would you say? Include or exclude?
I would say include, and just because the fact of the payroll and all that's gotta save them hundreds and hundreds of hours. Just having a simple thing every month other than our expense farms, be easy peasy. So I say include.
Okay, Councillor Shannon?
I would say not included this time.
Councillor Scammon?
I'll say include, and one of the reasons why I would say that is because it also includes not only those committee meetings, but also these meetings. And if these meetings also our attendance rate at these meetings are all, it's also not equitable for a number of reasons. Sometimes people are off doing council business, so that then miss these meetings. And other times there's other reasons, there's all kinds of reasons to miss these meetings. But one of the reasons that I say include for everything is because it puts the onus and the responsibility back onto the councillor to say, my rate is for all of this stuff. So I'm responsible to get there because I'm so expected to be there and covered for it. So I need to rearrange my schedule, do what I can. I understand it's not easy for everybody, and there's plenty of things during the day that I miss and all kinds of stuff too. But for that reason, I say include is because it puts the onus back onto the councillor to make that effort to be there, not just say, well, okay, if I don't make it, I'll get paid, so it's all right. It's kind of win-win, or it's a wash or whatever. And I like that responsibility of saying, you're expected to be there. You're so expected, you're paid for it. Get your fun.
So right now, include. Deputy Mayor Ford?
Not include.
Councillor Good?
I'm not ignoring the question. I'm gonna come down at this point on the include. But more for Mark's comment, not just because of your logic, but more, you clarified a couple of things for me in that comment. That, yeah, I think there's some, I think there's a way, yeah, I got something else out, but yeah. Include. At this point.
Councillor Carr?
I certainly agree with Mark's comment. It would save administration a lot of hours in entering everything. But I'm still going to go with exclude at this point with the consideration that I would like those numbers that CAO Miller had suggested to call maybe some other communities to see how it works for them and maybe make a firm decision from that.
Okay, and mine is exclude. So we can all change your minds whenever this comes to an actual policy that we're going to vote on. But if we can, as the CAO suggests, go and ask our councilors that we may know, or even look on their websites and figure it out from there, sort of thing. Is there anything else in section 2.4 that we should have a little conversation about? I'm looking at M myself. Out of town travel time would be included in your basic.
In your per diem.
That's
So
in your per diem.
if I travel on
Out
Tuesday
of town.
to get to the meeting on Wednesday, I get paid the per diem on Tuesday. Okay.
And so as it's written, then you're per diem to be in half days. Right, so you might use half a day to travel, or you may decide to just travel on your own time. Essentially, really, yeah.
Thanks for the clarification there. But anybody else, any of A through N, or something else you want to throw in that section? Okay, so how about 2.5? This would be a way to have counselors, I think I'm reading this right, paid if they have submitted a report on the activities they attended. 2.5. Who is that?
That's an echo of your recording.
Anyways, section 2.5. Do you agree with that? Submitting a report for your activities. So this could mean an example, I guess. I attended the powwow. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Ford. And I spent 7 hours at the powwow and I saw this, that, and everything else, sort of thing. I would write that in my report.
So
And
we have a
that-
standard template that we all use.
Well, you can make up one and suggest it to us. But it, you know, and you don't want reports that are 50 pages long either, so you have to have some,
Standardized.
I'm putting pictures in mine.
oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Council, or Deputy Mayor Folder.
Well, just to reiterate on Councilor Wojciech's comments, I know we have like our current timesheet at the bottom of it is an expense claim form. But Kayla has already given us a different expense claim form. So can we put get rid of that expense claim form on the bottom of the timesheet and add a general
Things would
set up the
change.
same way, like date,
Well, you would
what
have
the
to-
event
It
is.
would have to be a report. You're saying something about the thing you went to. You're not just saying you went.
I don't.
You were,
Or
I
you
wasn't imagining a report like that. I was just, when I
Just a
had
list of
envisioned
times?
this, because you're not doing a timesheet now, right?
Right.
But members of the council wanted the public to know that they attended.
So I would
Be
say
received.
powwow 7 hours.
I wouldn't even, you
Right.
want to put hours down. I'm just thinking this is a general report. You're not gonna get paid. Right?
Well,
So it would be up to you if you wanted to put the amount of hours.
So
This to me was just because my mind was because everything is now included in your honorarium. And what I've seen around this table is they want the public to know, I went to this, I went to that, I went to this. So just a simple monthly report, and it'd be kind of like, this is where I attended and did, and you.
So it's a list of activities.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that too, because if I go
Okay,
to
gotcha.
an NPC meeting that takes 15 minutes,
You'd better be putting in.
I just put NPC, great, like, because,
It's up to you, whatever you put there.
no, yeah, so that the time thing is like.
Okay, I got you. I was misreading that one. Anybody else? Anything on 2.5? How about 2.6? Maybe that applies back to our discussion. Good. How about 2.7? Just a newbie. It applies to those who can do RSD. It applies to a category of counselors.
Isn't there something when you're like a rep or what is it that you have to transfer that into? Yeah, can you still contribute to a pension fund after you're an officer? We don't need to write that in there.
So anyway, so would we agree in principle that if this was available, counselors could partake?
Yeah, is this an opt-in thing, kind of like our benefits plan?
It's brand new, so I'm just putting it on there for some, yes, it would be.
Some of you, it just wouldn't fit. You couldn't.
But some.
Yeah, some you could. So a counselor could look their circumstance and figure out if they want to be partly here and partly there.
Well, if you're, I mean, if say, okay, so if you're in the position where your salary from council is part of your, like, this is what I need to live, and I'm planning for the future, I'm not, this old yet, or whatever, then I can see that being an advantage for some people.
So you're
The idea
agreeing in
being
principle?
I'm okay with it in principle, the idea being that it makes the job attractive to, any or more, let's say, more segments of society, right? Like, so, yeah, it would be, if this job only works for like old rich people, then if we set up a policy that only helps or only makes it easy to get in this job as an old rich person, for example, then we're gatekeeping the chairs around the
I
table.
may be elderly, but I'm not.
Well, I'm not trying to label anyone around this table as that, but if you start self-identifying in a hot mic, I can't help that.
You're hitting a hole here. So you're agreeing with the principle.
I'm agreeing with the principle.
Good.
And just kind of the philosophy of the broad principle of things like benefits are these types of things that make the job more accessible to more segments of people.
Okay, so anybody else want to comment on 2.7? How about 2.8, which is the benefits and so on? Any disagreements there? Maybe that's an easier way to.
It's an opt-in thing, right?
Yes,
It doesn't say that here, but basically that's our assumption.
it says we'll have access, so that
Well,
means,
okay, we'll have access, right?
I think that's the way it would be interpreted, because you can't force it on people.
Well, it says it shall provide coverage, and it will also have access, so. It should say the town shall provide access to coverage for medical,
Mhm.
provide access to coverage for medical.
Yeah, that word shall again is. Okay, how about 2.9? Can you get your expense claims in by the 5th of the month? And I think someplace in here, expense claims were now on the calendar months rather than coming in on the 20th or whatever the date is. So you would submit expense claims for all of May, not up to May 20th, and then,
Can I jump in on a place where I changed my mind?
okay.
Not on something we've discussed tonight,
Oh,
but it sort of ties into this on putting in the expense claims.
Is this with respect to this policy?
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
2
not,
minutes.
no, because what I think is, I want to talk about is not mentioning the policy, but I think it should be mentioned in the policy. And some people might be shocked by my change my mind, but ask if somebody has advantages. One of the comments that was made early in council was, why do I have to charge for it if I don't want to? Or if I don't need to? And I was quite, to a degree, opposed to the idea of saying no. And I've kind of come around, or maybe I've come to the position of saying that I believe that the public has a belief that people should be fairly compensated for what they do, especially if it helps them, or if they need it. But I don't fill out forms very well, and sometimes it's because I'm not good at it. And Kayla, thank you very, very much for all of your assistance. I've been very honest with that. But sometimes it's because I don't need it and I don't particularly want it enough. Does that make sense to anybody here?
It does, but I think it's going back to a different conversation than,
I didn't see it in here.
no, it isn't, because this 2.4 is to get out of that conundrum, as well as 2.5. 2.4 is the monthly honorarium, basic,
Well, yeah,
basic, whatever.
let's just assume that the person didn't want their motivation to vary. I'm just throwing it out. I'm just throwing it out. I mean, seriously, I'm just throwing it out.
Quite frankly,
No, I mean, if you disagree with me, that's fine. But I'm just throwing that out. That,
then we're in the same conundrum. that's
no,
led to
no,
this
no, not that.
conversation.
Depends on what we're trying to achieve, yeah? Go ahead.
So let's say you put a policy in here, a counselor can opt into a percentage of, so your base salary, let's pick a nice round number of $100,000, not that anyone gets paid that much this low in the valley. If someone were to say, look, I'm happy to do the job for 75. They could opt into a 25% thing where they do the same amount of work as everybody else around the council, you know, give or take. But just accept less. Do you mean like that? Like, so you keep everything that's here, it doesn't upend this whole entire thing, it's just on the end, if you wish to.
No, I'll tell you.
I mean, we've had people in the last election campaign on taking nothing.
Well,
They didn't get
I have
elected,
people that I greatly respect do that.
They did it rather quietly, I might add.
Well, they might, but some of them did, but I guess what I'm saying is freedom has its benefits and its rewards, and if a person doesn't need it and doesn't want it, I think what a person may have been looking for was the opportunity. Because I know on one person, 2 years back, this has nothing to do with you at all, was not going to collect his salary, and it wasn't anybody in the last couple of terms. It wasn't going to collect their salary. Why? Didn't need it, didn't want it. Didn't make a big thing of it, just didn't want it. And the freedom to not make a big thing of it and not want it was something.
So then,
Because they saw it as their way of contributing to, another way of their contributing to the community.
so Councillor Good, you would prefer a line in here that says, I'm opting out of any reimbursement, 100% of my salary is
No, no.
donated?
No, not even a percentage, but this month, I feel like I could use it this month, next month I don't. I mean,
The problem with that is I end up having to sign off on these things, and
it's real simple, you sign up. I don't know, it's just, I'm just throwing it out there, and
okay,
again,
so
for me to have come around to here. You know, I mean, sorry for throwing.
okay, yes, you're throwing I don't know, a ball.
But to a degree, it's
Thank
the elephant
you.
in the room, so.
Councillor CAO.
No, thank you.
Miller has a comment.
2 comments. One, it's really critically important that the hours, as the best we can, that we properly reflect as best we can the cost of conducting the business of the organization. And in the instance where you are speaking to Councillor Good, I would be happy to put in a clause that says, if you so choose not to be compensated, you could donate your salary back to the town. So it gets recorded in the financial statements as a cost of doing governance. So when other communities are doing just like we're gonna do, go around and compare, you know, governance costs. It really messes it up when we're comparing, and I've said it even myself, yeah, here's ours, but how much wasn't actually claimed for? Like, is this a true reflection or not, right? But I could easily put a clause in there that says, if you so choose to donate, the proper procedure would be you get paid and then it just gets donated right back to the town and you get the tax deduction. Because it's town can issue a charitable donation receipt, so you're benefiting the town. But you're also showing proper cost of governance.
And then if you wanted to let people know about it, you could, seriously, I'm not being sarcastic, if you want to tell your friends about it, that's fine. Some people like to, some people like to do it, some people don't, like, I could see that.
And so
I'm just saying that there has to be a method to recognize the freedom. Yeah, it just has to be a method of recognize.
So I'll pose the question, and maybe I'll just go around. Councillor CAO Miller has put out a possible clause here, which as I understand it, there would be something that you would check off saying. I'll pose the question.
The upgrades are coming.
What did I say? What did I say? That would pose the question or allow the opportunity for a counselor to say, donate my salary or something back to the town. Is that kind of what you said?
Rather than somebody saying they don't want it.
Yes,
because that's-
yes. They're making their choice on that matter. They probably get a charitable deduction out of it too. My goodness. But maybe some charities in town would benefit. Who
Money
knows?
for the donation to grants to groups.
That's good.
That's another, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna ask counselors one by one. Would you prefer to have that sort of clause included in this policy? Counselor Good. Yes or no?
Fantastic.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor,
Doesn't matter either way to me on that one.
you're gonna say yes or no?
Can't choose either.
No.
Just enough. Interesting.
Imagine you're voting at a council table. Maybe you can put
You
yourself.
cannot abstain. You want this option or no?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Gives the person an option.
Counselor Scanlon.
Yep.
Okay, Counselor Shannon.
Sure, but wouldn't that take out, wouldn't the fact that if everything goes under the salary, then that would take out the whole need for that, then would it not?
No,
No.
he's talking about salary.
You could reduce your salary as
Okay, I
well.
see.
You could sit there saying, no, I want, here's $500 or $1,000, this my favorite.
Want to start talking ahead of you, then you gotta start.
So you're saying yes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Can't hurt.
thanks. Counselor Boychuk.
I would say yes, and I'd like to see a fund set up that we can use it designated for something.
No. No, that would lead to a discussion.
I would say this, if you can pay
You
the
can
salary
donate it
and
to
if you wish
yourself.
to donate it quietly or loudly, wherever you like, that's
Where are we not talking about donating it back to the town?
Well,
Yes,
General-
Where is that gonna go?
that's.
that goes to the town or whatever.
So they
General.
use whatever, I'd rather.
then take your whole salary and donate it
That's what I
personally.
mean. So
Yeah.
if we had a fund set up that I knew was going to say help seniors or tax relief or something, that'd be different than just going into the
Just
general
general-
$1 million.
Just go to the food bank then and write them a check.
Yeah.
Well, I currently give to different things, you can take it out of your, I mean,
Yes,
yeah, you do.
yes. Counselor Carr.
I don't know why we would even need to write that in there. If you're going to donate it back, you don't need it in the policy to donate it back, do you? You can do it all on your own. We don't need it in the policy.
It adds up for the principle of allowing, of the principle of giving the opportunity. Because then when somebody says, well, I don't want to charge for this, or I don't want to be paid for that. It's in the policy, you can do that. It's now not a discussion. You just go ahead and you do what you think is right. And I think it's fine. And, you know, yeah, I'm, like I said, I didn't start at this position. So I'm surprised I ended up here.
So Councillor Carr,
You give me the options again?
Yes.
I don't see the need for it, to be honest.
so you would say no,
I would
probably.
say no,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. EM says yes, because she's lived through this. She says yes,
What was the result of the straw poll? I missed a couple.
6-1,
So it's a yes.
6 to sort of 1, 5 to sort of 2.
Okay.
Straw.
Wow,
Okay.
outlier.
Now we're on the per diems as written here. Whole day,
Okay,
3.1.
so I may just provide some clarity if I may, Your Worship.
Okay, sorry.
When we're talking about submitting expenses, I don't think you could, other than yourself, when you want to see them to sign them off, expenses could be submitted anytime. Because it would just get processed on the next pay.
No,
But per diems,
whatever it is, I think, like right now, there's a deadline of 45 days. Within 45 days, so is that in here somehow? Because it shouldn't be, I can submit my expenses from last September on June 10th. That's a little, that's causing.
I see what you're saying, but I'm not stuck on only once a month, so we want to put a limiter in there for maximum number of days, but otherwise, you know, we check runs every week, so when it comes to expenses, it doesn't matter. It's the per diems, because you folks get paid once a month, right? And so it's that weird day and it's a cutoff and
We don't
missing
want
part, we don't want that, we want an entire month. If we move forward with this policy and there are any per diem claims, it would be for the full month to be submitted by the 5th of the month forward.
Yeah.
The only per diem would be if we went to a conference.
Yes, and it would all be, yes,
And travel to out of town things.
And the honorary would be once a month on X day roughly.
yes.
Wow.
Automatically, you get paid once a month, whatever for your honorarium, and then, yeah.
I prefer that. This is great. Because I only submit every other month anyways, because it's not worth the paper processing time for someone down there to do it on some months if it hasn't been a busy month.
And if we stick to well, I mean, depends on the policy.
Yeah.
If the policy ends up where it's not all inclusive and we end up doing time submission for a committee, it still wants to stay with the full philosophy that the entire month goes on one time sheet and then it gets submitted. So then that way there's no accidental double claiming.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what happened, right? Accidentally because of a weird timing. Yeah, and it happened. It's just because of timing, where if we know it's the entire month's worth goes on that would avoid that.
Drop to erase 3 lines on the time sheets.
Okay, so we're at per diem, section 3.1, full day. Are we agreeing that that's enough? That would be included when some figure comes forth. 15 days annually per counselor. So if you think back, you've had a year of counselors. Would you have taken 15 days, excluding the 8, so 7 days really, if you did the other things down there?
Yeah.
Exclude AM, but add any other conferences you went to or stuff like that.
So it's basically 2 conferences. If we're kind of counting, it's pretty much 2 conferences a year, which I think,
Plus AM.
yeah. But it's like 2 extra conferences a year, which I think is a reasonable amount to expect the taxpayer to pay for the average council. Exception being the mayor who has to go, gets to go, has to go. I don't know, however you feel about it, more stuff.
That's on the date. Okay, but in conjunction with B. So. We have these 15 days. And
I would prefer to see hours. So if the conference ends at 4 or noon, that's considered a day.
No, you don't have to do
It's half day.
that one, you don't have to do.
0.5, 0.6, 0.8.
Which number are we?
Hey, you're the you're the easy accounting guy. Wasn't the easy accounting guy just sitting in your chair? Like,
That's why I say
5
if you
minutes.
get hours, it's a piece of cake. It's,
well, we're doing hours.
we're doing.
We're getting away from our.
well, you're doing days, right?
Yeah.
So what is the
This is
difference?
half or one.
So if you're 6 hours a day, right?
Full day,
No.
the definition is anything more than 4 hours. Under the definition, full day is more than 4 hours. And then under C, it says you can go in half day, you can split to half days.
Maximum allowance is 20.
Well, and I'm not talking dollars because
So what's considered a day? Is it a 12-hour day? Or 10 hours?
No,
Anything over 4 hours.
so you could spend 8 hours. You could spend 8 hours at something, that would be a full day. Next person could spend 10 hours at something, that's still one full day. Next person could spend 6 hours, still one full day. Somebody else could spend 5 hours, that's one full day.
but the person who spent 6 hours could choose to only claim half a day. It's up to them. They can say, you know what, I'm only gonna take half a day and save my other half a day for something else.
So the
So
person is
Only
keeping track
discretionary.
themselves.
So for example, if I drive to AM,
Right,
and it's 5 hours, I could claim a half a day.
right.
Because then I can use that other half day to go to the next conference that I want to go to.
Right. Right.
Okay.
You wanna drive to Grand Prairie, you may wanna take that 2 hours after work yourself, it's 2 hours, but if you have to take time off work, you might wanna claim half a day. Cause now you've lost pay, right? But
So that's where
you have
the option that Don was talking about, comes in too, with our pure diems, we can choose or not.
Your discretionary, it's at your discretion, how you wanna claim that per diem.
Okay.
Yeah, like that.
Okay, so where were we at? We got to the half day thing. So 15 days seems reasonable at this point in time? Under those conditions?
And we're doing some analysis,
Yeah.
and so I.
Okay, so question for you, seeing as you're, I don't know, you can answer yourself, is 20, seem, you've been in the chair for a little bit, how does 20 feel for you?
It depends if, the meetings, if they're included in here. Like all of a sudden this year, for instance, the train thing, CRAA came into being. So that's meant 3 meetings thus far. Is that 3 half days now? Or what is it? So in that case, 20 is not enough.
This is not really a new committee, or it is a new committee. Is that came in?
Mhm.
But it was in Grand Prairie.
It's not.
some of your
It's a
Zoom-
new committee, so
Pardon me?
let's say it's. a new committee. Part of your honorarium.
Mhm. Yeah, so things like that.
And then so only the out of town.
Well, no, if I have to disrupt my day so I can sit in a Zoom meeting at 1 o'clock in the
I
afternoon,
mean, that's this.
yeah. Yeah. So I would say 20 days are maybe a little short there.
I'm doing some analysis on
Yeah.
time sheets.
The same for counselors, needs to be thought on it, because the 8 days that are there are in that 15, that might have some limitations. Because you've gone to Economic Development Council in, down south, that took an extra day or 2 coming and going.
8-hour drive there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so,
And anything back east,
mhm.
right? That's
FCM,
travel.
you went to FCM recently,
So that's 4 days of travel.
FCM factored in.
well, at least a day either side, but it could
5-hour
be,
flight and a 5-hour drive down.
yeah. So something that needs to be thought about, maybe the FCM business down there.
I think
Well, she
we
did
put
have a-
extra,
Extras for
we
extras.
put under F, we
Extras
get
for
extra days for FCM.
Mhm.
So twice a year or twice in your term, you will get the extra 4 days to attend.
But we're saying that 4 days is not sufficient.
So that would add into your other dates that you already have.
Correct.
But if your other 8 is already full up,
We should have the historical data, how many
Yeah,
conferences,
yeah,
each counselor.
Mhm.
Yeah, so-
our time sheets should tell us that. Okay, what else? Does B make sense? Or is that connected to the meeting slash committee discussion?
Per diem?
Balance of the annual per diem allotment to be used to attend meetings, so on and so on.
Okay.
So if I find a conference on communications, for example, that I think is valuable
Unexpectedly.
for me, I don't have to come.
Correct. As long as it fits in your allotment.
My goals and my
Yeah.
numbers.
Makes sense, everybody? How about C? This is the half-day increment business. So MPC would just have to decide if an MPC meeting is worth half a day,
Well,
depending on how the meeting discussion.
depending on the discussion.
Mhm. Unused per diems are not carried forward in the following year. Sorry,
Yeah,
Happy to-
She's assuming that if we don't include the meetings or do, that they would be applied as per diems and that maybe that would be adjusted, or would that be under back to hours?
To me, if it's all in, that would be part of your committee meeting.
Yeah, the assumption being that if they're not all in, but
we have
maybe
to
that's,
decide something.
there's too many dominoes that have to fall to make
Yeah.
that jumps. Yeah.
They're not all in or meeting, however, that's pretty.
Yeah. Ms. Parsons, did you have a? That was it? Okay, part E. So in election year, 2 extra days for extra training. So these
That would be the
EDEOP or whatever courses
unique 101.
that are, well, that would be an E, but there's, there's 6 or 8 of those courses that are quite helpful sometimes, so they would go into your allotment there as well.
I'm not sure about the election year, because sometimes you get elected in November, that year's the election year, but it's the year after that you would be taking the course.
But I was talking about that year because there's orientation and there's usually.
Within a certain limit.
Well, it depends if we start counting in January or November,
That's
because,
clarified in clause G.
okay,
Okay.
Okay,
organization, we're
Election term.
counting organ from the order meeting.
org to org.
Okay. Smarty.
Okay, part H, should we ever unfortunately need a state of local emergency? Then things kick into place there.
Corey, did you do D,
Yeah,
unused per diem? I don't
well,
remember.
maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we said that.
Okay, but my feeling is possibly carrying a percentage forward or carrying, not that, like on holidays, for example, you can carry, I can carry 10 days forward at work, for example, and I can't carry it forward 2 years. I'm blocked at the end. So I think in unused days, depending on if you see something coming up, it's gonna be like a week-long conference somewhere, it's gonna be really good a year. You could bank it a bit, knowing it's gonna come up next year and you wanna use it. Or I can see, especially, and I'm being serious for Art, for some of the conventions that he might wanna go to, I said, he's going to Europe, and I'm not being sarcastic. If, that it could be the time you would go to that and put your time ahead so that you could do that. So I think you might want to put something in there that you could bank a certain amount or a percentage, or you could bank an unused amount, but it can't go to the second year. In other words, it's got to be used up within the year prior to when the bank. It just, I think just without hurting anything.
As long as somebody can count that without losing their head.
Huh?
As long as someone's like the person that's gonna be keeping track of this.
Well, I think if I knew it was happening, I'd keep track of it.
So 5.2, we might get to that part, it might affect this discussion. Okay, so the communication expense, the cell phone will be provided to the mayor. So I have a cell phone with a new number, and apparently I'm getting emails there that I'm only supposed to get on that phone, not my personal stuff. So that was the reason for that one. But counselors could actually say they wanted a cell phone. Remember, we had that discussion. It's not in here. So do you agree with the rest of number 4 or not? And also 4.4 is new, I think.
Couple things. I think that if a counselor doesn't have a phone, and again, you're trying to open it to people who may or may not have a phone. I think that if they're gonna be a counselor and you want them to have a phone, you think they should have a phone, I think town should provide it. Not everybody has one.
Well, for example, when I first got elected, I was using a flip phone.
And a smartphone has its reasons. The tablet or other device, if desired by the counselor. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm a geek. I got tablets, I got tablets and laptops. I got access to them. I don't need another one. I wouldn't carry 2. If I'm gonna travel somewhere, I got the one I'm gonna use. But I can see another potential that the other counselor might want. Because some people work better with an iPad, other people work better with a Surface, other people work better with a phone.
Yeah.
Some people want a little deal, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that, but it says as determined by the Director of Corporate Services.
In consultation with. Because they might have a thing that says, absolutely no tablets. We're not supporting tablets.
Well, they
You
might
know,
have,
or
they might
whatever.
have a security reason for not supporting X
Something.
number of thing. That makes sense, because I've worked in that. And I'm not gonna sit there and support certain things, but I think
So-
device as a person should have some say in what they work best with.
So is this leading into saying, get rid of this screen in front of me and have a tablet here? Is that what this is leading into, or there was no intent?
No,
Great.
no, we're keeping stuff permanent in here.
These
Great.
This would be people like you attend a meeting on Zoom on your phone and you got the tablet access to the document. So
Right.
When you're on a meeting on Zoom, you're
Absolutely.
trying to bounce back and forth. Oh my goodness, I don't know, and you're a nightmare trying to.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we wanted this changed a wee bit to,
My only concern with that is who is the person that's maintaining this thing? And if so, if he wants an Apple tablet, and you want a Chromebook, which I know you don't, and you,
Oh, no, you'd be surprised. I usually.
oh, okay. But you know what I mean? Like,
there should be some.
is the tech, I think that's why it says determined by the Director of Corporate Services, because otherwise, you know, poor tech guy's got to figure out how to support all these things.
As determined in consultation.
That's what I read.
Okay.
I think the Director of Corporate Services is gonna give you a good reason why he doesn't want you to have X gaming machine or whatever.
Okay, so we're good with 4? Okay, how about number 5? 5.1.
Well, this was talking about my new budget, so the budget, we actually built this year's budget like this. And I'm gonna be able to report we've been trying to track. Because we assigned a code to everybody, so whenever any of your expenses get paid, it gets coded, so we can pull it out. So we can actually sort of see how we're aligned to the budget.
So this is, okay, Counselor X says, wonderful new conference has come to my attention. I want to take it. That this is where this fits or not?
Yeah, so the beginning of the year, let's say, I'm just gonna pick a number, everybody gets $5,000. Travel and travel and conference budget, right? And so then you would just pick, that's where you go, and so that your budget be your hotel and your meals and your registration and.
There have been in a lot of municipalities I've talked to, a number of their counselors have gone on to become CAOs because they've gone up, taken the administrator's course while they're a counselor. And if you do a couple of terms as a counselor and you have your administrator's course, what's the designation?
CLGM.
Right, and you can get that. It's not doable in a 4 or 6 year period. And a person who gets into this environment, a lot of people really like the idea of potentially being a CAO later, getting away from the political side and being an administrator side. So that would give you the opportunity to do that. And I think it speaks well of your community that you're doing something to support people beyond after their counseling.
So the part, the additional expenditures.
Yeah.
So how is this different than whatever you're doing back in 3.1?
Because that's your pay per day, so this would be like, oh, I found a conference that I think is really great, but it's in Las Vegas. Well, fine, I mean, you can go, you can use your per diems on that for your pay for your day, but keep in mind that you're gonna burn up your
So
$5,000
this is
expenses
a
for your
different kind
hotel,
of,
for your flight, for your
Sorry.
meals, for your whatever.
so per diem is here and this is here.
Yes,
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so here's where the 5.2, so this part could be carried forward 1 year. If 5.2 is what we want.
Because that's what I found in my past life is you want to go to FCM, but then it's in Halifax. So be like, okay, I'm gonna go to the one in whatever, Saskatoon. And I'm gonna save some money because next year I want to go to Halifax and it's twice as much the flight and twice as much. Well, the hotels are usually the same, all that conference hotels are. But it's the travel distance. So then they save they wanted to be able to save some of their expense money. To be able to have that better conference, or like say, go to Europe or go to the tech conference in Vegas or whatever.
and this gives the taxpayer some assurance that someone's not leveraging their council position just for holidays, and I'm not saying that that's what someone is doing or people are doing, but it's, again, this is a good policy for the town. So that,
Okay, so in 5.3, the expense claim form. Is there any way we could standardize this? Simplicity,
Standardize the form,
the date probably. And it would
but
be-
expense claims, it doesn't matter.
So as mayor, I could say I'm only signing these on May 6th or on the 6th of the month. Doesn't matter if you. Whatever,
They just.
stack them up until then.
Until you came by and signed them, but they do issue checks.
But it's also my time managing to drop in or not drop in. That kind of thing, which,
They're gonna sit in a folder till you.
yeah. Okay, so no date there. People are okay with that one? 5.4? Okay, how about 5.5? 5.6? Okay, only eligible for reimbursement or payment once the report to council has been submitted.
So this one was conferences, conventions.
I think that's fine because it doesn't say that it's going to be approved. Council doesn't have approval for this. They have, you submitted your report, you're standing by it. That's your submission. You went, you paid, you spent money.
So the report, CAO, that you're thinking of for this section is simply a listing, I went to conference X. Or how,
I think it. Not that we did decide, it's what.
I know, but-
Council like
report,
out of their report from a conference, how much would. Put some parameters in it, you know. like-
so there should be some wording to what you're submitting, not just the title.
feel like a group.
Someone did a report, you did a report today, just kind of these are the sessions I went to and.
Okay, but we could limit it to 1 page.
If I may, like, I went to the ACCPA conference,
Yes.
came back, didn't have time to sit down there and do a whole bunch of writing. And Kayla already had the report on the next agenda, so all I did was provide a verbal report.
So a report, right?
Okay,
I think that's what's important is that.
Yeah.
provide
Kept
some
me on my toes.
feedback, because you're choosing it yourself to go, right? You're not looking for enabling or anything.
So somebody could look back at their calendar and say, June 2nd, I went to blah, 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 June 3rd, I went to blah, blah, blah. That's the report.
That's up to you. I mean, if you may want to tell more about it. That's up to you too.
A lot of good data, and we spend a lot of money to go to these conferences. I'd like to know what you attended and what.
Well, I'm saying, is there an expectation here?
I would think so.
Well, is there either is or there isn't, because you're not gonna get paid unless this report is submitted. So is it okay to have the report that just lists the title? If it's a verbal report, that's kind of hard to sign off somehow.
Is there a form? they
I
could make?
think, like, I'm gonna try to make the argument the other way. I think if you went to it. The fact that you came back and spent 3 minutes describing it, or 10 minutes or 15, doesn't increase your paycheck. And it doesn't change the amount of your bill or whatever. You went, you reported, whatever. The public's gonna judge you on whether or not. You came back and gave any information or what you did over the next year. Like, let's say you went to a report on, green technologies, pulling on my hair, out of the hair. I went to a report on green technology, I want to discuss solar panels. I'm not gonna come back and give a 2-hour dissertation on solar panels, so maybe a paragraph, we went and studied solar panels. Over the next year, the public's gonna see, was that knowledge used, was that ever applied anywhere, did the person do anything with it, that's gonna be in your reports also. So I think the report is basically your, I went, here's my expense claim, I went, and that's what I'm getting reimbursed for. I don't know that you can sit there and say that you have to do kind of a chapter and verse of what you did. So I see what your point is, Mark. But I think a lot of times the information you get only becomes relevant. Because I know you, when you go, you take the whole pile of pamphlets and stuff like that, right? And you read them later and you got that information at that conference, but one, I don't care to some degree about some of the stuff you read because it doesn't affect what I want to do. Some of it I might find interesting. But I don't think your pay or your reimbursement should be dependent on volume. So I'm just saying that.
It's just value.
Huh?
It's just the value, right?
I personally would like to see a piece of paper that lists, if nothing else, that lists the conference, because that's a paper trail that then I can sign.
Oh, that's fair. You went to the conference here and, you know.
Like, keep it simple, but add on, if you want to remember, kind of, and spread whatever education to the rest.
Yeah, we can make a simple template, what workshops you attended, so then I can say, hey, Don, you attended a green municipality fund, what? Let's talk about that, let's go for coffee and let's see, what did you learn?
Well, and you know, it might
Yeah,
be,
that's
and we went to a session at AM last year that it turned out we sat in the back and visited because the session sucked. It's like, that happens, so, I mean.
But you don't have to report every, yeah, you don't have to report every, in my opinion, every session you went to, but some good ones that you want to bring back information on. So, Ms. Parsons, did you have that kind of encapsulated there? Elaine is saying paper form of some sort. Nobody else managed to object yet, so I'm gonna suggest you go with paper form. Whatever, just simple, but something on paper. 5.7 mileage paid as per government rates.
Yeah, BTV from.
5.8. No mileage within town.
Is mileage though now underneath that? Base salary, or do you still?
Yeah,
7 mileage.
so for you to drive to the,
No, I mean, like if we're going to Growing the North in Grand
no,
Prairie.
that's your expense.
Okay.
But the time of it is the
Under
the
per diem.
rates thing. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, so mileage still happens. Okay, liquor is not an allowable expense, except where protocol dictates.
No.
Maybe tobacco should be in there as well then. Costs will not be reimbursed while attending a political party function of any type.
What's a political party? Is that like a social event?
Usually like if they charge for employees.
Fundraisers, yeah.
But what about a social event?
Well-
Anybody ever charged to go to those?
What's the social event?
Well, at AMA, they have the, whatever, the hospitality suites or whatever.
That's your
right?
per diem.
Yeah.
There's no expense to that.
Mark on those?
Do we go to them?
No, do we charge?
So you,
No, I never charged for hospitality, but I've gone to many of them, but no, I mean, my feeling is
You're
the
talking-
benefits there
you're
already.
talking about the government,
That's what I
I don't know,
consider.
work together after one of the days or something, is that
No,
what you're talking
whatever,
about?
you know, when you go to the brew house and everybody's in there and you meet.
You don't have
testers
4
and all
hours
that
to your
stuff.
bill.
No, the brew house is not claimable. I wouldn't sign that.
Whatever the hospitality suites I'm talking about, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
We don't live for
that's what I consider the political party, so. That's what I
Oh.
had in my head.
No,
Oh.
Anyway, for this.
No, Well, this would be like,
Where it says defined by
right
whatever
there,
government defines
Like a
as.
fundraiser.
Yeah, stay away from them.
It's the same accounting arrangement. There may be at these different conferences, political parties that want to talk to you about their policies and stuff like that. And you can go to them, you just don't play them as a part of it because they're a political event.
well, look, it might be that you go to one of these places and bump into a minister at the bar, like when AM was in Red Deer, I sat next to the Minister of Education for 45 minutes and chatted him up. It was a great time, but you know, it's like, put it on your time sheet, I don't know that, but.
Okay.
The definition of political.
511. Council members will strive for fiscal responsibility when booking accommodations and traveling. Are we? Most of the time, admin would book the accommodations, would they not? And the travel, if at all possible, so then we don't use personal credit cards for this or that. Right? And sometimes council books it, the rate is different than personal booking. Right,
So
so
this might be something like that green conference or whatever. Am I gonna bug Kayla to book me a hotel and all that
Yeah.
for that, or am I doing my own?
You might get better rates. You can get better rates.
if possible, Kayla loves to book these things. She loves to return phone calls and she loves to re-go and get another invoice copy because something's the matter.
Got me up at the top floor of the pension.
She loves
Pretty
that.
happy with her booking skills.
Go.
No.
Okay, if you're 512, you're staying at a relative or a friend.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
That's the standard, I think. 513. Most economical might mean you travel within a day, not travel over 2.5 days because the fares are better or something.
Well, that's
But I think-
yeah, but then you're
I think,
probably a little further ahead for the town anyway.
no. Okay, any other questions on number 5?
No.
Number 6, meals.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with 6.
Okay, people are okay with 6?
Is this just personal?
What do you mean?
Are we allowed to buy meals for other people on planet?
No,
That's what it's $150.
you can't claim it, no, for somebody else. This is counselor themselves expense. It's like,
Can I ask you a question?
That's true, right?
If I'm going to a hotel, and I think this is sort of along with Mark's question, maybe not, but. If my wife was going to accompany me to Edmonton while I went to a conference or a convention, because a lot, the AM, for example, has things for wives at the conventions and stuff. I would pay the difference between, am I correct, that I would pay the difference, and I would hope to pay if there's a difference in the rate because my wife is there, that should come out of my pocket. If there's additional expenses, that comes out of my pocket, et cetera. Am I correct that that's okay to do, but it's totally on my hook?
I bring my dog.
Sorry?
When I bring my dog, I gotta pay I pay the $25 a night, right? Not- so, yeah.
but if your wife goes and stays in the same hotel room as yourself.
Yeah.
That should be quite fine. Without any extra expense.
Well, no, but some hotels charge you, if there's 2 people in a room, they charge you X, if there's 1 person in the room, they charge you Y.
I think most are based on 2 people.
Well, half
If you
hour
go
here,
3,
half
then
hour
you're-
there.
then you're-
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Good, you go to your own hotel, and if your wife really wants to go, you should go with her.
What if there's 3?
Be quiet, and number 7, miscellaneous. Anything about miscellaneous? Mr. Scanlon, you're not speaking.
Sorry.
We're number 8 by June 1. Here's, okay, this is new. .1.
So this means every term, basically, one of these public task forces is going to be struck to review. So what's about to happen here is gonna be a 4-year thing.
Yes.
what I most often find is they'll set the kind of what the starting remuneration is, and then often they'll say the next 3 years will be CPI or whatever staff gets or whatever, or nothing, like, it's actually. But then they'll usually make recommendations for the up until the next review period.
So in this case, would this be June 1 of
Next year,
2024?
yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, by all means.
Regarding will they be presented with a package of what they would,
Yes.
like what parameters to follow to come to their decision, like
Yes.
specific parameters?
We will set out some terms of reference. We'll provide some terms of reference, and then the director of corporate services or usually it's that position would work with them and show them and walk them through it. So yes, and they, in that terms of reference, it'd be like, these are the communities we're gonna compare to. You need to obtain these policies and stuff.
Okay, will we have any input on what the parameters are to make sure that there is?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, the terms of reference will come forward.
okay. And then my next question is, how would you choose public at large committee? Like, would you just put out a request on Facebook and people submit their names? Oh, okay.
Little resume, nothing big.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And then we would vet them and then we would come forward.
Okay, thank you.
Am I correct that, oh, sorry,
Go right ahead.
my feeling is that the process, like you say, doing Facebook, putting, asking for names or whatever, having a resume or whatever, put in, or a short little note of who you are. And then administration should make the choices to the people who are on it, based on that, based on the criteria set by, in your terms of reference, correct?
And then we just come and say,
These people fit, and this are the ones we've chosen because they fit these criteria. Okay.
So in principle, we're okay with this concept?
Absolutely.
Is this committee paid or is it volunteer?
it's volunteer.
We really would have no need to even know who you chose, would we?
No.
Like, there's no reason why.
Well,
council
they
wouldn't.
It's a
would come to
public-
present, so at least
Yeah.
the chair of the committee would need to come and present, because.
Yeah, after the
Yeah.
fact, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Okay, anything further? How about 8.3? Whatever the town council then decides about the committee report goes into effect after the board meeting, right? In November?
Fair, I think that's fine. Yeah. At the last regular meeting of November, which is after the org meeting. Your org meeting is like your last meeting of November.
Sorry.
So, okay, let's just read this again. To allow time for public consultation, the council shall vote to accept, etc. Received at the last regular meeting of council in November.
And then it wouldn't go into effect until.
After the
following,
election.
but this way it would hit budget, right?
Well, it hits the new council.
Yes. and
Rather
it's
than
the
this
budget.
council, I
If it's in November,
Right,
then we put it in the budget for 2020, the following year.
and this council is setting up new council until they review it at some time.
So you live with this policy for a little while.
You would not be affected, this council would not be affected by whatever this committee says or whatever the town council says.
This committee, this policy goes into play, we're gonna establish the rates to start with based on historical stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then it would be in play until next election. Until the election?
Yeah.
Yes, because next June, they're gonna come into, they're gonna come in and do the evaluation next June. And by November, they're gonna present and whatever council accepts would go into play until the following.
October 2025.
Right, but it'll be in all the election materials, right, for us, because now, I did that date for a couple of reasons. One, because budget, so it's gonna hit the last quarter of that, right, so we're gonna get that calculation in there. Plus, nomination period now starts January 1, right, nomination used to be September. But now nomination period is January 1, which means we have to get our election material information out. And that's something that you would want to have in your election materials is what the remuneration policy is, right? So we want to have that set by the end of December of that year.
So you follow?
I think so. So when, well, determine if I follow or not. When will this work that we're doing come into effect?
Right away, like as soon as
This
you
one
guys.
is now.
This one's.
This is for now, yeah, and I'm gonna, like I said, I'm doing compares, I'm trying to do some analysis on, so we can set the rate. Comparable to what you're being paid now, right? And then, that would stay in place until the next. Following, like right now, the current policy right now says your remuneration increases by the same percentage as staff. That's the current policy. Right? So in my mind, that'll come into effect. That's this year. This policy will get all figured out.
And whenever it's voted on, it's in effect
And then,
for us.
and then it'll be going forward to the council, the next council after as a template. to start.
Where you guys would, yeah, you would set the policy, you would set the new rates. The policy would be in play for 1 year, really. Policy would be in play
Until
almost 2
really,
years of election.
yeah, until October 2025.
So if
Whatever
you-
we're
right.
dealing with here.
And
There
so,
you practiced for almost 2 years, right? Yeah, so you know, you'd say, oh, gosh, you didn't go.
and so will you be, will there be a task force struck for this round? Or will this task force won't be until the review for the, okay.
I'm the task force right now.
Task.
I mean, you could certainly have, we could push that one up sooner. I mean, there's lots.
I think that would be rather
Please
cumbersome.
no.
I'm
Let's
just
get it
trying
over
to
with.
work on.
Yeah.
And my thoughts are, the current policy says just do the same increase, so we should probably just cover next year, right? Make sure we have that adequate.
Okay, any further questions on this? So admin will come back with some thoughts and we'll all come back
I'll
with our.
send you some information, like I
Yeah.
said, there's a ton of like municipalities to call. On how they feel about just a flat rate. With all your stuff, just to get some feedback.
Okay, so our next meeting won't be until July 10th. Okay, so by July 10th, right, we'll have our thoughts on this again. And plus a new version of the draft policy, if we get a motion of some sort tonight, right?
Well,
So tonight we were looking at the principles. We talked about them. We had some questions. And a few little changes. Ms. Parsons.
So I just changed the, for resolution to just be that council directs administration to bring a revised policy back to the next council meeting for further discussion.
That's probably gonna cover it. Some counselor prefer to, or like to put that forward.
so moved.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Ford moves. Any further question on what's happening?
Just with much thanks to administration for the work. they've done.
All those in favor? It is carried. You look like you had a question, no?
Me?
Yeah. No?
I think because. Yeah. Thank you.
So we'll push along on this one. Okay, so we've been here since 5 o'clock. It's 3 hours. I estimate we have another 20 minutes. Do you want a break or you want to carry on?
Speed through. Carry on.
carry on, okay. Okay, reports, Northern Alberta elected leaders, I attended to this, you can see that our admin is, he's working on things, so anyways, we had new terms of reference, basically it just laid out the, cost to belong to the group, I think for Peace River, it's about $1,500 a year. And that's about it. Any questions? RCMP Regional Advisory Committee, who went to this one?
That would be Mark, I was the waiver.
Okay,
April.
this was from April. Orin was absent. So, Mr. Boychuk, if you were there,
Yeah, I was there.
anything you want to highlight?
Nothing that's not in the notes there, was, the drug court, that's exciting, you know, moving towards getting a drug court in our community and, working towards that. And, we're very blessed to have a pretty good restorative justice system in town, so that's really starting to take a lot of, highlights and attention in the community, so. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward, everything we talked about.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, Peace River Aboriginal Interagency Committee meeting of May 16th. I attended this one and it's kind of laid out there. Most of the talk was about powwow. Any questions? Next one, Town Peace River Community Services meeting. Councillor Carr, anything you want to bring forth from that one?
Not really. There was discussion about what they would do for discipline when people were acting up within the ATEX Center. That was about it. That was the only big one. That was the most discussion anyway, but that's about it. Reports.
Reports. And in a public building too, it's even more interesting, the discipline idea. Okay, Peace Library System. So you've got the board highlights of May 27th. Basically, we have the auditor present the auditor's report. They did not make anything note for us to pay particular attention to. However, do note that the costs through the library system will be going up 5% per year. I think we're going to have a percent, or we'll have a discussion on it. Basically, library systems, they make a contract with each of their member boards. So there's 40 member boards within our system. And everybody signed off that we can do up to a 5% increase per year. We perhaps should have been doing that the past couple of years and we have not. So it's like a deficit position in that way.
5% fee increase or what?
And a fee increase to the town.
Go to the town.
Yeah. So we pay 40-some odd thousand right now for what the library provides to our library.
So we'll be going up by 2.
Yeah. Something like that. Okay, and then the next one is FCM, and Councillor Boychuk has provided a comprehensive FCM report. Looks like he saw everything, and every party was there. Housing, homelessness.
Yeah, and I included the 3 resolutions that we did at the end, which are very interesting. One was a new framework for municipalities due to the massive increase in population and stuff. And they want more funding per person, you know, and stuff like that. So that was an interesting conversation. And then there was definitely one around homelessness and mental health and addictions, much like we're putting through to the AMAs. The national problem.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, the next one is Municipal Government Commission meeting minutes. June 13th, Mr. Good, Mr. Scamahorn, anything?
Just a commercial building reverting back to residential and another potential member that's going to be coming to us for approval.
Okay. Great. Okay, then we have the Alberta Community Crime Prevention Association June 15th meeting. And Deputy Mayor Board, Councilor
Yeah,
Boyd.
I was out of town and working again on Wednesday, that haven't been very good, so that would be Councilor Boychuk.
Anything either of you want to say with respect to these two reports? So we're good.
Yeah, there was nothing much.
No.
Anything exciting, mostly post-conference wrap up and that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you. Then perhaps Councilor, somebody would move that council accept items 10.1 through, no, it's 9.1 to 9.9 for approval. Thank you, Councilor Good. All those in favor of that motion? It is carried. Thank you. Next up, information package of June 9th. We had some invitations that are passed. I did attend the first one, the Glen Mary School Grade 7A Museum exhibit. They were doing Canadian history and they had all sorts of things there, so it's quite interesting. Then I went to Peace High's grad and I went to a Cole Crafter Brown's grad. And on a different light, I attended Outreach School grad. Pardon me. Anyways, anything else that somebody wants to talk about there? Okay, would someone like to move?
I'll move that council accept item 10.1 for information.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, then we have that's the only information item. Okay, the other information item on June 16th, maybe it was the same one. We already covered it. Any notices of motion?
None.
Any comments from the public? Key communication items? How about Canada Day? Happening at the park, 1 p.m.
Like it.
Like it or not, it's happening. It's at the park and I think Community Services has organized the day basically. So there's activities and of course the speech. So on. Any other thing that's happening that we should? Yes.
Probably the 5,000 to the voting association event.
Okay, 5,000 to the voting.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay, anything else?
Here's
Okay, that's pretty good. We don't have any item for closed and adjournment. If someone wants to move that. Councilor Ford moves adjournment at 8:06. All those in favor?
Well, your 20 minutes took 6 minutes.
We're still recording.
Be careful.